grief and lament. 6 hours later, Murongxiong Tian came before Long Zhengyan again with a box full of information and items. He also had 3 members of the Dark Eagle with him, each of them dragging a person whose face was covered with blood and tears. Seeing Long Zhengyan, the 3 prisoners started to tremble, and their legs shook as if there was an earthquake. The person in the middle immediately knelt on the ground as he howled. "See, Chief, everything back then was ordered by the young master. Even if we were 100 times as brave, we wouldn't have dared to disobey him. Chief, please spare us. If we hadn't followed the young master's orders, we would have died. We had no other choice." As he spoke, that person started to painfully weep. Seeing him fall to his knees, the other 2 people also hurriedly fell to their knees and sobbed. Long Zhengyang's face became ashen gray, and he did not even bother to look through the things in the box. He stood up and coldly looked at these 3 people, who he had been familiar with over the past 10 or so years, feeling both shock and pain within his heart. He never thought that even these 3 people, who he trusted greatly, would lie to him with Long Tianyuan. He coldly asked, "Tell me everything I want to know without leaving anything out. Otherwise, I'll make your families all disappear from this world." As the chief of the 7 main forces, Murongxiong Tian's methods were quite extraordinary. No matter how tough someone was, he or she would not be able to endure the 7 main forces' interrogation. This was because no matter how stubborn someone was, Long Yu's mental espers were able to enter that person's mind. Before coming here, they had already confessed all they knew, so now that Long Zhengyang was questioning them, how could they dare to lie or hold anything back? They told him about everything Long Tianyun had done, and they even fought to tell him as if they were afraid that they would say less than the others. Long Zhengyang's expression darkened as he silently listened. From the beginning, he didn't say anything, but his clenched fist slightly trembled. In the end, blood even started to flow from where his fingernails had pierced into his flesh. Beside him, Murongxiong Tian also had a heavy look on his face, and he occasionally looked at Long Zhengyang worriedly. As the highest chief in all of China, there were many things that Long Zhengyang needed to attend to, and he had countless things that he had to think about. He almost had no time for himself. He was busy to the point that he would meet up with his son, Long Tianyuan, at most once every month. As such, it was impossible for him to completely know what Long Tianyuan was up to, nor would he normally order the 7 main forces to investigate his own son. Moreover, Long Tianyuan had always performed well, and the outside world had always praised him to be one of the most excellent people in China's younger generation. As such, Long Zhengyang had always been very happy and satisfied with Long Tianyuan. Even though he knew that Long Tianyuan's personality was somewhat dark and cruel, he did not think much about it, and he instead thought that they were traits that important people should have. As such, he did not interfere with Long Tianyuan's matters at all. However, he never expected Long Tianyuan to be so vicious and merciless as to try and harm his own little brother, much less expect him to secretly cultivate an incredibly active Isrock disease. One could only imagine how many people Long Tianyuan had killed using the Isrock disease over the years, as well as how many innocent people that Isrock disease had spread to. If this sort of thing was spread to the public, the Long family's reputation, which had been maintained for thousands of years, would be destroyed in an instant, and they would be hated by all humanity for the rest of time. Long family's great court, underground chambers. "Dad, is there some secret that you want to talk to me about?" After the chamber doors were closed and a dim light flickered on, Long Tianyuan spoke with an uncertain tone. Long Zhengyang was normally incredibly busy, and they rarely met. Every time they met up, Long Zhengyang would always be smiling widely. However, Long Zhengyang had suddenly come home today, and he had called Long Tianyuan out from the game and dragged him here. From when he had arrived, His expressions had been incredibly calm without even a trace of a smile. Long Zhengyang coldly stared at Long Tianyuan. This son, who was now 26 years old and had always brought immense pride and joy to him, now caused him to feel a pain in his heart. He clenched his fists and trembled as he suddenly stepped forwards and savagely slapped the unsuspecting Long Tianyuan. "You animal!" Long Zhengyang's slap was incredibly heavy, causing the unprepared Long Tianyuan to turn 270 degrees before falling to the ground. After crawling up, Long Tianyuan was dazed for 3 seconds before holding his swollen face and looking at Long Zhengyang with anger. "Dad, why did you hit me? What did I do wrong? You animal! You have the face to ask what you did?" Looking at Long Tianyuan's innocent eyes, Long Zhengyang felt even more infuriated. He walked forwards and heavily kicked Long Tianyuan's chest, causing the words that Long Tianyuan was about to say to be set back down. Long Zhengyang had been trained in martial arts, and his kick caused Long Tianyuan's ribs to almost be broken, causing him to roll around and cry out in pain. Long Zhengyang did not look sympathetic at all, and he flicked his wrist, throwing 3 sealed capsules on the ground as he roared with a dark expression. "Explain to me what these are!" Seeing those black capsules, Long Tianyuan's eyes contracted, and cold sweat erupted all over his body, causing him to forget the pain in his body. He knew that his father had done rigorous investigations considering his personality. Even if he tried to explain things away, it would achieve nothing. As such, he could only admit it with an expression of terror. "Dad, I've been keeping this a secret from you this entire time, and I was in the wrong. But I did it for our Long family. It's difficult for us to openly get rid of some of our Long family's enemies, and this method doesn't leave any evidence. If we want to do great things, we have to choose the best methods. I did it for our Long family, for the Long family." Long Zhengyang coldly laughed as his expression became even darker. 13 years ago, did you also use this to kill your own little brother Tianya for the Long family?" Long Tianyuan's body trembled, and his eyes widened as he subconsciously shook his head hurriedly. "I did not, you didn't." Long Zhengyang once again fiercely kicked Long Tianyuan as he shouted, "The people from your secret labs have already confessed. 13 years ago, it was you who took away the first batch of highly active Isrock disease. You infected Tianya, and the 2 people who you ordered to bury him alive already confessed. Long Tianyuan, how malicious is your heart? I can't believe that my Long family birthed such an evil animal like you." Long Tianyuan's face became red then white as a sheet. From when he had been born, this was the first time that Long Zhengyang had called him by his full name and not Yunair. It was evident how furious and disappointed Long Zhengyang was. Long Tianyuan raggedly gulped down a mouthful of saliva and gritted his teeth as he screamed back, "Dad! Indeed, I did it, but I did it for you." "For me? Long Tianyuan, how can you make such a ridiculous excuse?" Long Zhengyang looked at him in disappointment and pain. "That's right. I did it all for you." Long Tianyuan looked up into Long Zhengyang's eyes. "Long Tianya was your son, but from when he was born, how many times did you hug him, see him, care for him, or even allow him to call you Dad? He was a son of the Long family, but did he have any status in the Long family? Even the children of attendants bullied him, and anyone from the Xianyuan family could bully him. You knew about this, but did you ever say anything about it or stop it?" Long Zhengyang's body swayed, and his face suddenly became pale. "As long as one wasn't blind, anyone would be able to tell that you didn't like Long Tianya at all. No! You completely despised him. Even a blind man could tell that you didn't want or love your second son, and that you wanted him to disappear. As such, anyone could bully him as they wanted because they knew that you would not do anything about it, and that you might even feel happy about it. In the outside world, no one even knew that you had a second son. When he was 10 years old, you were about to become the highest authority in all of China. If it came out that you had an illegitimate child, it would be a great obstacle to you. So everyone in the Long family knew that you wanted that unwanted son to disappear. Since you couldn't do it, as your son, it was my duty to help you. A load of rubbish. Tian was my own son. How could I want him to disappear from the world? It was evident that you were worried about him fighting with you over your position as the successor, which was why you murdered him. Long Zhengyang furiously replied, "If you really saw him as your son, why did you treat him that way? The way you treated him evidently told everyone that you didn't want this son at all, and that you wished that he would just disappear." Long Tianyun loudly replied, "You?" Long Zhengyang's face became even paler and his entire body trembled, but he was unable to say anything. No matter the reason, everyone in the Long family had clearly seen how he had treated Long Tianya. "You're saying that I was worried about him fighting with me over my position as successor? Dad, do you even believe those words? Apart from being able to live in the Long family's residence, he had nothing. Let alone power and authority. He didn't even have a teacher to teach him how to read and write, and that was because of your orders. He had nothing, and even the attendants looked down on him. The Xianyuan family's people all called him a bastard. He didn't threaten me at all. How could I fear him? I got rid of him for you, for the Long family's peace." "Nonsense! Nonsense!" Long Tianyun's words sounded like thunder to him, and Long Zhengyang stumbled back a few paces, his face as pale as a sheet. Apart from yelling, he had no way to rebut Long Tianyun's words. He knew clearer than anyone how he had treated Long Tianya back then. An unexpected guest. No matter what sort of reason you had, the fact that you used vicious methods to kill Tianya is the undeniable truth. Long Zhengyang's voice started to tremble, because he started to feel that what Long Tianyun had said was right. He was what had caused Long Tianyun to do what he did. If he had treated Long Tianya even a bit better, and had been more of a father, then that would not have happened. He grabbed Long Tianyun's collar as he yelled with grief. "Now, I have to tell you that Tianya, who you infected and tried to bury alive, is actually still alive. He's the one who has caused our Long family disaster time and time again, the person who almost killed you. Ling Chen." What? Long Tianyun's eyes bulged, and his body froze. "Impossible. This is impossible." "That's the truth." Long Zhengyang's expression darkened as he gnashed his teeth. "Were the Yun family and Su family's daughters infected by you, you animal? Today, I received news that the Su family's daughter was cured and that the Yun family's daughter is most likely fine. Since Tianya was able to cure his Isrock disease back then, he was naturally able to help them. Luckily, they were protected by the heavens and were not killed by you, you animal." "Impossible. Impossible." Long Tianyun's expression became blank as he shook his head, completely unable to believe what he had just heard. Long Zhengyang's grip tightened on Long Tianyun's collar and brought him up from the ground. "Now, you're going to come with me to meet Tianya and kneel down and apologize. Even though he hates you to the bone, if you truly repent, he might just forgive you. Perhaps you'll be able to resolve the hatred towards you. However, with his hatred towards you, and adding on the fact that you just tried to kill the Yun family's daughter and Su family's daughter, he might be thinking of ways to kill you right now. Kneel down and apologize? No, I'm not going. Even if I have to die, I won't kneel and apologize." Long Zhengyang's words sounded like a demon's curse to Long Tianyun, and he struggled out of Long Zhengyang's grasp and resolutely shook his head in terror. "You evil animal!" Long Tianyun once again kicked him and said in a hoarse voice, This is the only way to save you. You've seen clearly the power and authority he has. If you don't do this, he'll take your life sooner or later." Long Tianyun continued to desperately shake his head. "No, I'm not going. Back then, I killed him for you and the Long family. I did nothing wrong. After Ling Tian appeared, he went against me in everything, causing me to lose all my face and dignity. If anything, it should be him kneeling to me. Even if I die, I definitely won't kneel to him if you're determined to do this to me." Long Tianyun took out a small pistol from his side and threw it at Long Zhengyang's feet. He raised his face and breathed raggedly as he said, "Then just kill me now. I want to know if the son who you've nurtured for 26 years is more important than the bastard who almost destroyed our Long family twice." "You?" Long Zhengyang felt a heaviness within his chest, and he almost coughed up blood. He pointed at Long Tianyun, his entire body trembling. Only after a while did he lower his hand and heavily sigh before walking out of the secret chamber. "The sins of the child are the sins of the father. I'll go and plead with Tianya for your life. I'll deal with you cultivating the Isrock disease on another day. For the next few days, I want you to stay at home. You're not allowed to go anywhere." Long Zhengyang spoke all of these words without any strength in his voice, and each step he took felt as heavy as a 1,000-kilogram boulder. The whole ordeal with the Isrock disease did not result in anything, but this scare set alarm bells ringing in Ling Chen's head. He realized that there were dangers that, despite being incredibly powerful, he was unable to defend against. At the same time, he completely lost all patience he had towards Long Tianyun. "Long Tianyun, I'll definitely make your life worse than death," Ling Chen muttered to himself as he gripped his fists while lying in a grassy area in Ling Tian City's leisure district, a dangerous light in his eyes. Before the news that Ling Tian City's beautiful lady had been infected with the Isrock disease could be spread, Yunming Xian appeared in the lady of the city's residence, putting an end to all of the rumors. Ling Tian City's development continued to grow at an astonishing rate, and the expansions had already been half completed. In fact, the expansions were progressing even faster than when the city had been constructed. After all, what Ling Tian City now lacked least was money. Furthermore, after establishing the trade route with the underworld, which cost almost nothing but brought massive benefits, money rapidly poured into the city. "How are you planning to take revenge?" Li Xiaoshui elegantly walked over and did not hesitate to sit down next to him as she looked at him. "After having this done to us and almost losing two beautiful lovers, I'm sure that you won't just sit by and do nothing considering your personality. What do you think I'll do?" Ling Chen crossed his right leg over his left as he casually asked. "Kill Long Tianyun?" Li Xiaoshui leaned down, giving an enchanting but dangerous smile. Anyone who heard the suggestion of killing the Long family's successor would have been given a great shock, and yet Li Xiaoshui had said it casually, as if Long Tianyun's life and death meant nothing to her. "Kill him? Hey, why should I kill him? Not only am I not going to kill him, but I'm also going to make sure he lives till he's 100. Ling Chen evilly grinned. "Oh!" Li Xiaoshui revealed an interested expression. She naturally knew that Ling Chen wouldn't let Long Tianyun off easily. "Then are you planning on making it so that living will be worse than dying for him? This will be a bit hard. Let me guess. Are you going to completely destroy the Yin-Huang alliance, completely laying waste to his efforts over the past years? Making him feel so much pain that he goes mad? With your ability to destroy even the royal city, I'm sure you can do it easily. Destroy the Yin-Huang alliance? I wouldn't do that." Ling Chen's reply exceeded what Li Xiaoshui had expected. He looked up at the sky as he said lazily, "The Yin-Huang alliance has tens of millions of players. Destroying such a power would be too much of a waste. Now, Even the incredibly intelligent Li Xiaoshui had no idea what Ling Chen was thinking. At this moment, Ling Chen's communication device sounded out, and Yunmeng Xian's voice came out of it. "Ling Tian, are you in the city?" "I am. What is it?" Ling Chen replied. "Someone wants to meet you. It's Chief Long. He's in the guest hall." A look of shock simultaneously appeared on Ling Chen and Li Xiaoshui's faces. Ling Chen got up, and after frowning for a while, he replied in a low voice, "I got it. I'll go over now." After hanging up the communication device, Ling Chen fell silent. Li Xiaoshui also stood up, tapping his shoulder lightly with her long fingers and said simply, "Go." After all, he was Ling Chen's biological father. She couldn't say anything as to how he should handle this. Ling Chen started to silently walk towards the guest hall. The leisure district was right behind the center of the administrative district, and it was only about 2 streets away from the guest hall. After reaching the entrance, Ling Chen saw Yunmeng Xian standing there with a worried look. With China's highest authority coming here, she, the lady of the city, had to personally receive him. Seeing Ling Chen walk over, she hurriedly went over to him. Just as she was about to say something, Ling Chen spoke first. "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Go do your things and don't let anyone come near here." But Yunmeng Xian still wanted to say something, but seeing the calm look on Ling Chen's eyes, she swallowed her words and nodded. "All right. He's inside." Ling Chen walked into the guest hall and immediately saw Long Zhengyang. As China's highest authority, he always had a crowd of people following him wherever he went, but he was the only one in the hall. Long Zhengyang saw him at the same time, and after their gazes met for half a second, Long Zhengyang quickly stood up from his chair. His movements were a bit panicked, and his gaze and manner didn't give off the airs of China's highest authority. Neither his eyes nor his aura gave off even a bit of pressure. "What do you want?" Ling Chen coldly said after entering and crossing his arms. Facing the person who had made it difficult for him to eat and sleep, waves crashed within Long Zhengyang's heart. He moved his lips, trying to say the sentence that he had prepared, but he was unable to say it. In the end, he could only muster out 2 words. "Tianya, I'm called Ling Tian. You have the wrong name." Ling Chen expressionlessly replied in a cold voice. He did not react at all to the name Tianya. This was because early this morning, he had heard that Long Zhengyang had found out that he was Long Tianya. Of course, this was from Gui Long, who was still imprisoned. "No, I know that you're Tianya. I'll say it again. My name is Ling Tian." Ling Chen discourteously cut him off, a look of rage on his face. Long Zhengyang's emotions welled up as he said in a trembling voice, "I already know what happened. Tianya, I let you down. The Long family owes you far too much, and I only just found out the truth about 13 years ago. Shut up." Ling Chen cut Long Zhengyang's words off coldly as he narrowed his eyes, his gaze piercing through Long Zhengyang. "I'll say it one last time. My name is Ling Tian. I indeed knew a person called Tianya, but it's a pity that he died 13 years ago. He was killed by his family. If that's who you're looking for, then go ask Yama about him after you've died." "Humph, since the person you're looking for is Tianya, not me, I'll be going now." After saying this, Ling Chen turned and walked towards the door. Her name is Gu Qinghan. Long Zhengyang had thought that Ling Chen would have been slightly moved after he called out the name Tianya. However, Long Zhengyang could only feel coldness from Ling Chen, and there wasn't even a trace of emotions, causing his heart to chill. That's right, he had been harmed by the Long family to such an extent, he only felt immense hatred towards the Long family, not emotions. Ling Chen stopped walking, but he did not turn around. He calmly said, "I don't like wasting time on people I'm indifferent towards. I'll give you 30 seconds. People I'm indifferent towards. Long Zhengyang bitterly laughed. Who else could he blame but himself for his own son treating him like this? This was what he deserved. In this sort of situation, he was unable to say any of the things he had prepared and could only say in a grieved voice, I know that you hate Long Tianyun to the bone, and I'm sure that you already know that the Isrock disease was because of him, making you hate him more. I know you can't forgive him, but based on your blood, he's still, so no matter how you punish him, please at least leave him his life. That's all you have to say. Hearing Long Zhengyang's words, Ling Chen remained calm, as if he hadn't heard it at all. Ling Chen suddenly heard something falling to the ground. He subconsciously turned around and saw Long Zhengyang kneeling there with a look of pleading in his eyes. You? Ling Chen's heart jumped, and he subconsciously jumped away, dodging away from the direction that Long Zhengyang was kneeling in. Long Zhengyang was the leader of the Long family, and he was the most powerful official in China, wielding the most power in the entire country. There were countless people who knelt towards him, but apart from his parents, no one had the right to make him kneel to them. His pride and dignity simply would not allow him to kneel to anyone but his parents. And now, he was kneeling on behalf of his son Long Tianyun in order to plead for mercy for his son. Ling Chen never expected Long Zhengyang to kneel, and at the same time, he felt a strange sense of terror. After all, although he did not admit it, this was his father. Seeing his father kneel to him, anyone would feel as if they had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Long Zhengyang said with an expression of pain, I never thought that in this life, apart from my parents, the first person I would kneel to would be my STU. However, I should be kneeling. The sins of a child are because of his father. I cannot deny responsibility for the wrongs Long Tianyun has committed, so I am kneeling in his stead. Although I don't dare to ask for your forgiveness even if I kneel 1,000 times, please at least spare his life. Even though he simply cannot be forgiven, everyone knows that he's the Long family's successor. If he dies, it will bring a great shock to society. China's politics will be greatly affected, and the Long family's reputation will also decline. Promise me 3 things, and I'll promise not to kill Long Tianyun. In fact, I won't even make trouble for him. Ling Chen's breathing became erratic as he said in a low voice. Long Zhengyang raised his head and revealed an excited and grateful expression. All right. As long as we can make it up to you, no matter what it is, I'll try to fulfill your wishes. Number 1, immediately get up from the ground. I don't need you to kneel. Ling Chen turned around as he quickly spoke. Every second that Long Zhengyang remained kneeling made him feel more uncomfortable. Long Zhengyang stared for a moment before slowly getting up from the ground as he looked at Ling Chen's back. Hearing Long Zhengyang getting up, Ling Chen silently let out a breath of relief, then calmly said, Number 2, I want you, in your capacity as the highest official in China, to declare to all Chinese players that Lingtian City is the Chinese players' central city. In the past, China's official power was the Yin-Huang Alliance. Whenever a decision had to be made on behalf of all of the Chinese players, it would always be the Yin-Huang Alliance making those decisions and presenting those speeches. During international conflicts, it would also be the Yin-Huang Alliance coordinating the Chinese players. This requirement was essentially asking him to take the Yin-Huang Alliance's brightest and proudest halo away from it. All right, no problem. Long Zhengyang did not hesitate at all. In actuality, as Lingtian City became more and more powerful, Lingtian City had surpassed the Yin-Huang Alliance in every way, and the Yin-Huang Alliance's luster had dimmed. Even if China's government did not acknowledge it, the Chinese players already saw Lingtian City as their core, as opposed to the Yin-Huang Alliance. Number 3. Ling Chen paused as he raised his head, a strange light flashing in his eyes. I want Long Tian Yun to come and find me at Ling Tian City within 1 hour. No, forget it. I changed my mind. Tell him to wait for me at the Yin Huang Alliance's headquarters within 15 minutes. There are some things that I want to say to him face to face. After saying those things, the hatred between us will more or less be resolved. In the future, let alone kill him. Even if you begged me to kill him, I wouldn't do it. Long Zhengyang stared dumbly for a while before asking in disbelief. That's it? With how much Ling Chen hated Long Tian Yun, Long Zhengyang had thought that each of the three things would be more difficult than scaling the heavens. Who would have thought that the three things were all incredibly simple to the point that he felt that what he heard wasn't real? If you're not satisfied, I can just find an opportunity to kill him. Ling Chen coldly harumphed. No, it's just that this resolution is much better than anything I had expected. Long Zhengyang slowly shook his head, finally able to put down the heavy weight in his heart. He was sure that Ling Chen wouldn't go back on his word. Out of the three things, the first two were trifling matters, and the third was simply a meeting in the virtual world, so he didn't have to worry about him harming Long Tian Yun. Long Zhengyang thought that it was him kneeling had made an effect. Before coming here, he knew that with Ling Chen's hatred towards the Long family, and especially Long Tian Yun, normal ways would not work. His only choice was to use extreme methods, so, in order to protect Long Tian Yun's life, he had chosen to use his status as the highest authority in China, and as a father to kneel down to Ling Chen. The results were thousands of times better than he had expected. I know that you can't forgive him, nor does he have the right to ask for your forgiveness. However, I thank you on his behalf for sparing his life. I promise that in the future, he will never do anything to harm you or your friends. Ling Chen still did not turn around and said, Remember, 15 minutes. If I don't see Long Tian Yun in the Yin Huang Alliance's headquarters within 15 minutes, then pretend I didn't say anything today. If there's nothing else, I won't be keeping you company. With Chief Long status, there are countless things you need to think about every day. I'm sure you don't have much time to waste on a national fugitive like me. Long Tian Yun's gaze became bitter, and he helplessly sighed. All right, I should be going. However, there's something I should tell you. When you were younger, I told you that your mother died when you were born. However, that was a lie. Your mother is still alive. Ling Chen. The Long family has greatly wronged you, and I've made great mistakes. However, your mother has done nothing wrong. Before you were born, all of the doctors said that she might not survive if she gave birth to you. She had a very prestigious and important identity, and her life was more important than anyone else's, so no one wanted to see her risk her life to give birth to you. However, she, who was incredibly mild and gentle, was incredibly resolute about this and was adamant about giving birth to you. After you were born, she walked the boundary along life and death. If it wasn't because of our Long family having a secret technique, she would have died that day. Although she kept her life, in the following 3 years, she was unable to even walk, and there were many ailments left in her body. Even now, when dusk falls and it rains, she experiences a terrible soreness and numbness in all of her limbs. She's already endured this sort of pain for 20 or so years. Hearing this, Ling Chen's chest heaved. You never saw her after you were born, not because she abandoned you, but because of an incomprehensible reason that made it so that you had to separate, and the further apart the better. Otherwise, she could have died at any moment. What was the reason? Ling Chen coldly interjected at this moment. Long Zhenyang gave him a deep look and said helplessly, Perhaps you'll find this reason laughable. This was because when you were born, an elder with special powers said that you had a fortune of great calamity, one that had never been seen before. After she gave birth to you, some deathly aura remained within your mother, and if she was too close to you, the chances of that deathly aura growing would increase. As such, she had to be separated from you for at least 10 years, after which the deathly aura within her would be gone. Speaking to there, Long Zhengyang bitterly laughed. I know what I just said sounds incredibly ridiculous and foolish. The Long family's leader actually believed in fortune-telling. However, the person who said these things had extraordinary power and status, and he had never been wrong before. For her life, I could only make this decision. Ling Chen did not say anything, but his gaze uncontrollably trembled. Back then, before he had gone to the lava purgatory, he had met the Heaven's Secret sect leader, Taoist Tian Qing. Under Xiao Feng Chen's urging, Taoist Tian Qing had looked at his fortune, but the result had caused Taoist Tian Qing's expression to change and his forehead to be beaded with sweat. Afterwards, he had said that he was unable to tell his fortune. Ling Chen did not ask any further, but with his intelligence, how could he not tell that Taoist Tian Qing had definitely seen something? However, there must have been reasons for him not saying anything. Afterwards, Su'er had succeeded him as the Heaven's Secret sect leader, and he had jokingly asked Su'er to look at his fortune. Su'er did not refuse, and her reaction was exactly the same as Taoist Tian Qing's. Afterwards, under his persistent asking, Su'er only mentioned the words fortune of great calamity. Back then, he had only laughed about it. Su'er had forced a smile and said that the fortune was something illusory and vague and should not be taken too seriously. And now, Long Zhengyang had uttered the words fortune of great calamity. What's more, this fortune had been predicted when he was born by a mystical person. Although your mother was separated from you, she thought about you day and night. Because of her excessive longing, her body, which should have healed in 3 or 4 years, took many more years to recover. Both her and I bitterly waited for 10 years to pass, so that you could be reunited with her. However, who would have thought that before you turned 10, after she heard the news, she suffered a great illness, and from then on, she hated me and the Long family to the bones. Even her personality greatly changed, and it was said that after that day, no one ever saw her smile again. She threw herself into restoring her family, and she united the alliance in the south. I know that she did all of this to retaliate against the Long family. I owe her too much, and I have no face to meet her. Otherwise, how could I have allowed an alliance that threatened the Long family to continue existing? The hatred she felt towards me and towards the Long family was all because of her motherly love for her child. I can't help but say that I treated you so coldly back then because of secret troubles, and all of the things you faced were because of me. However, your mother did nothing wrong. If she knew that you're still alive, she would be so happy. Her name is Gu Qinghan. Ling Chen's breathing paused, and he raised his head as he took in a deep breath, coldly saying, Tell Long Tian Yun to wait for me at the Yin Huan Alliance's headquarters. He only has this one chance. After saying this, Ling Chen did not stop and quickly departed. Soul-Killing Curse. 15 minutes later, Ling Chen punctually arrived at the Yin Huan Alliance's headquarters. His arrival caused the players standing guard to be greatly dismayed, but Long Tian Yun quickly ordered, Let him come in! Ling Chen coldly laughed and swaggered in until he walked into the central hall, as countless Yin Huan alliances fearfully watched on. The moment he entered, he saw Long Tian Yun sitting arrogantly. Song Yen, Flame Shadow, you can all retreat. Without my orders, no one is to come in, Long Tian Yun said calmly. Song Yen and Flame Shadow left warily and fearfully. After the large doors closed, only Long Tian Yun and Ling Chen were left in the large hall. Ho, so you actually came. Long Tian Yun crossed his legs, looking as if he did not put Ling Chen in his eyes at all, giving off a provoking air. I never thought that you were actually my pitiful little brother. Hee hee, I heard that there's something you wanted to talk about. I came to say one thing. Ling Chen faced Long Tianyun's venomous gaze and calmly laughed. Honestly speaking, when he made that decision back then, his hatred towards Long Tianyun greatly lessened, and he even felt sorry for him. What I wanted to say is that you should treasure your final 10 seconds truly. Your dad knelt in front of me to beg for your life. Heh, since the high and mighty Chief Long knelt down to me, I have to give him some face. However, I never wanted your dog life, because that would be too easy on you. Long Tianyun stood up with a whoosh and coldly laughed as he said, Ling Tian, do you really think I fear you? Heh, what I regret most is sending 2 pieces of trash to dispose of you. If I had killed you myself back then, you wouldn't have caused so much trouble. Hee hee. Ling Chen also laughed, even more sinisterly than Long Tianyun. As he spoke, he slowly walked towards Long Tianyun. Say what you want, curse as you will, and laugh your heart out, because you won't have the opportunity to do so in future. Whoosh! A gust of wind swept out, and Ling Chen, who had been 10 or so meters away from Long Tianyun, suddenly rushed in front of him in an instant. He stretched out his right hand and tightly grasped Long Tianyun's neck. Feeling Ling Chen suddenly grab his neck, Long Tianyun only felt shock and fear for a second before they disappeared. He said darkly, What, you want to kill me? Do it. A little bastard like you only has this much power in the game. So what if you kill me 1,000 times in the game? You won't be able to harm even a hair on my head in the real world. Come to my Long family's residence again if you dare? Let's see if you die first or I die first. Ling Chen was not angry at all. He looked at Long Tianyun's eyes, and his gaze became more and more sympathetic. Not too long ago, I obtained a very interesting power. It's very vile, to the point that I thought that I would never use it in my lifetime. Using this power on even an unforgivable criminal who had committed heinous crimes would be too cruel. However, today, I found the best person to test this power on. Long Tianyun, I simply can't find a better person to use this power on, because Ling Chen's eyes were filled with rage and malice as he roared. Even if I cut you into 10,000 pieces and make you die 1,000 times, it would not be enough to quench the hatred in my heart. Soul-killing curse. As Ling Chen shouted out, an imperceptible, strange light flashed in his eyes. Long Tianyun, who was just about to say something, felt his body freeze, and his pupils unnaturally dilated to the point that they were tens of times bigger than normal. The soul-killing curse was the second forbidden Feng Chen murdering heart curse that Ling Chen had obtained at the underworld blood lake. The first soul-stealing curse was already quite terrifying, but this soul-killing curse was cruel beyond belief. Once people fell under this curse, their soul would not belong to themselves anymore. Their thoughts, actions, gazes, expressions, voices, even memories would completely be controlled by him, causing them to turn into a complete puppet. Let alone resist. Even if they wanted to die, they would need Ling Chen's permission. When Ling Chen unlocked this Feng Chen curse, he immediately felt that the only way to describe it was something that the heavens and earth could not tolerate, something crueler than dismembering someone into 1,000 pieces. At that moment, he thought that he would never use this skill in his lifetime. He never thought that he would use this skill so soon. After all, only this soul-killing curse could relieve the hatred he felt towards Long Tianyun. Long Tianyun's mental energy was like a small creek in front of Ling Chen's mental energy, a boundless ocean. Even the forbidden Feng Chen curses, which had an extremely low base success rate, would have a 100% success rate on him. His pupils dilated more and more until they filled his entire eyes, and all of his memories flooded into Ling Chen's mind. Reading a person's memories was not something very pleasant, especially if that person's memories were filled with filth. After reading less than 1/3 of Long Tianyun's memories, Ling Chen's pity towards Long Tian completely disappeared. He saw ugly, disgusting, and incredibly evil things. In fact, Ling Chen even felt kind using the soul-killing curse on him. A scum who deserves death. Ling Chen furiously cursed as he threw Long Tian far away. The instant Long Tian landed on the ground, his pupils started to contract until they went back to their original state. He hurriedly stood up, his body covered with cold sweat, and pointed at Ling Chen as he shouted, "Ling Tian, what did you do to me? What did you call me?" Ling Chen narrowed his eyes as a strange light flashed within them. With just this simple sentence, Long Tian's body froze. Following this, his face twisted as his expression of fear and shock instantly became a big smile. He suddenly knelt on the ground as he cried out, "Greetings, Master! Greetings, Master! Greetings, Master!" Looking at Long Tian servilely kneeling on the ground, Ling Chen grinned. He walked forwards a few steps and looked down at him as he said softly, "That's more like it. Remember, Long Tian, you're my dog slave. Whatever I tell you to do, you'll do. Even if I tell you to eat dung, you'll do it without hesitation, got it? Yes, yes, I'm Master's dog slave. I'll do whatever Master tells me to. If Master tells me to eat dung, I'll eat dung." Long Tian hurriedly promised, looking as if he would immediately crawl over to lick Ling Chen's shoes. "Very good. Then what are you doing there just kneeling? Hurry up and kowtow to your master. Kowtow as hard as you can, otherwise I won't be happy." "Yes, yes." Long Tian hurriedly nodded and did not even dare to hesitate as he repeatedly slammed his forehead onto the ground. Bang! 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 The sound of Long Tian kowtowing sounded like a rock hitting a tree. Every time he kowtowed, he would use all of the strength in his body to slam his head downwards. Using this much force each time would make him feel unimaginable pain, but without Ling Chen's command, he didn't dare to stop. He desperately kowtowed as Ling Chen coldly watched. Only after 10 or so times did Ling Chen icily say in a low voice, "Long Tian, this is your punishment. Enjoy it well, because there's still a long time left in your life." After speaking, Ling Chen raised his right foot and kicked Long Tian's head, sending him flying 5 or 6 meters. Long Tian painfully cried out and only stopped after rolling quite a few times. His body spasmed a few times before he stood up using the pillar as support and looked at Ling Chen fearfully. What did you do to me? What just happened?" "Not much," Ling Chen said with a warm smile. "It's just that from today onwards, your life, your body, and your soul are no longer yours to control. In other words, your thoughts, actions, gazes, expressions, voice, memories, everything will be controlled by me. Whatever I tell you to do, you'll do, and you'll never be able to resist. However, don't worry, I didn't completely destroy your mind. This entire time, your mind will be completely awake, and you'll clearly see just how much of a loyal dog you've become. I wonder if you'll enjoy this sort of feeling." Long Tian's pupils once again dilated, but this time, it was out of immense fear. His body trembled as he realized that Ling Chen's words weren't to simply scare him. Just then, he had been completely conscious, but his body had done something that he simply could not accept. He had smiled widely at Ling Chen as if he was trying to earn his favor, kneeled down, and called himself a dog slave. He had been clearly conscious that whole time and felt so ashamed that he wanted to die. And yet, he was terrified to find that he could not control his body, expressions, gazes, or voice. "Impossible. Impossible. You're definitely just scaring me." "That's right. You must be scaring me." Long Tian hurriedly retreated. The fear within him caused his body to feel incredibly weak, and he fell to the ground. With his status as the Long family's son, the prospect of becoming a complete puppet who would serve someone else in a humiliating manner, especially the person he hated most, all the while he was still conscious, was even more terrifying than being killed 10,000 times. Ho! Weren't you yelling about not being afraid of me? Looks like you've almost wet your pants. You? Long Tian Yun uncontrollably shivered as if he was in a cavern of ice. Impossible! How could such sorcery exist? You're definitely just trying to scare me. I'll take you down with me. A savage look suddenly appeared in the terrified Long Tian Yun's eyes, as he suddenly jumped up from the ground, leaping towards Ling Chen like a mad dog. Ling Chen did not move, and he only smiled and narrowed his eyes. Long Tian Yun suddenly fell in front of Ling Chen and repeatedly kowtowed as he yelled in fear. I'm sorry, Master. I didn't mean to offend you. I deserve death. I deserve death. I deserve death. Please punish me, Master. I'll be Master's most loyal dog, and I won't dare to do such a thing in future. Ling Chen sent him flying with a kick and said, Long Tian Yun, being a loyal dog isn't easy, so do your best to learn how to be one. Right now, your father is definitely waiting outside to ask how our meeting went. You can go to report to him now. I'm sure that you're a smart dog and will know how to reply. Yes. I definitely won't disappoint, Master, Long Tian Yun said as he hurriedly nodded and trembled. Also, I'll give you 3 days to gather all of the Yin Huang Alliance's powers and join Ling Tian City. Remember, it's to become a subsidiary of Ling Tian City, and they will have to submit to all of Ling Tian City's orders and arrangements. If there are any leaders who are disobedient, just continuously slap them. If there are any factions that aren't willing to submit, just destroy them. Now that you become my dog, everything that you've been developing all these years now belong to me, your master. Yes, I will definitely make Master satisfied, Ling Tian City said as he rapidly nodded. He looked at Ling Chen with an expression of currying favor, afraid that Ling Chen would be displeased. All right, now go and find your dad to report. Then, learn how to be a good dog. After saying this, Ling Chen wildly laughed and strode out. Long Tian Yun continued to kneel on the ground, not daring to get up, his entire body pressed against the ground. He then respectfully repeated again and again, Take care, Master. Have a good day. Take care, Master. Have a good day. After Ling Chen left the hall, he shakily rose, got his clothes back into order, and touched his face before yelling, Son Yan, Flame Shadow, get in here. Hearing Long Tian Yun's summons, Son Yan and Flame Shadow, who were right outside, immediately walked in and stood in front of Long Tian Yun. Long Tian Yun glanced in their direction with a dark expression and said, Immediately notify all of the commanders, leaders, and the alliance masters of the subsidiary guilds to meet here at 5 p.m. Everyone is to be here. Yes. Flame Shadow immediately replied. He then raised his head and asked, Young Master, what's the important occasion? Could it be that we're going to act against Ling Tian City? Bull crap, why would we act against them? Long Tian Yun snorted. He then said proudly, I'm going to bring the entire Yin Huang Alliance to join Ling Tian City in order to become Ling Tian City's subsidiary. We will also follow Ling Tian City's orders. What? Both Flame Shadow and Son Yan's eyes bulged, wondering if they heard correctly. Flame Shadow hurriedly said, Young Master, you must not do this. Our Yin Huang Alliance is publicly acknowledged by China to be the central power. How can we become someone else's subsidiary? Pa! Before Flame Shadow could finish speaking, a loud slap landed on his face. Long Tian Yun looked at him savagely, and just as he struck out with his right hand, he slapped out with his left hand. You dare to disobey me? Pa! I must not do this. Pa! Since when do you make decisions for me? Pa! You dare disagree with me? Pa! Try saying another word. Pa! I'll slap you to death. Pa! 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 Long Tian Yun landed about 10 slaps on Flame Shadow's face, causing his entire face to become swollen. Beside them, Song Yan's legs trembled, and he did not dare to say anything to contradict Long Tian Yun. He hurriedly lowered his head and said, I'll immediately notify them, before leaving as if he was running away. When Ling Chen had left, he had told Long Tian Yun that he was to slap anyone who disagreed. As a loyal dog, of course, he would strictly carry out his master's orders. Ling Chen could not think of a more fitting or crueler punishment for Long Tian Yun. After leaving the Yin Huang Alliance's headquarters, he flew around Ling Tian City and checked on the expansion's progress. When it was nearly dusk, he logged off after being called by Tian. After coming out from the game, he could hear the patter of rain against the glass. It's raining! Ling Chen looked outside and got off from the bed. He walked out of his room and stood on the balcony, silently looking at the rainy sky. Although she kept her life, in the following 3 years, she was unable to even walk, and there were many ailments left in her body. Even now, when it is dusk and rain falls, she experiences a terrible soreness and numbness in all of her limbs. She's already endured this sort of pain for 20 or so years. Ling Chen shook his head, trying to shake that voice out of his head, and he felt a trace of pain within his heart. What's going on? Even if she really is, but I've only met her a few times, and there are no feelings between us. This sort of impossible and unnecessary thing is something that I do not need. But why am I thinking of her now? When it's raining, it shouldn't be like this. Ling Chen, what are you doing here? Dinner is ready soon. Shadisika smiled and walked to Ling Chen's side in her cute white pajamas, looking at the rain outside. She muttered, It feels great when it rains. It's so cool and refreshing. Tian and I were in the rain for a bit just then, and it felt great. Be careful so that you don't get sick, Ling Chen said as he stroked Shadisika's hair, which was still not quite dry yet. Hee, I'm not afraid. Shadisika raised her hand, taking out a small bottle. With this, no matter what sickness hits me, I'll be immediately healed. Ling Chen stared in surprise as he asked, Any sickness? When he said this, he couldn't help but think of the words Long Zhengyang had said, as well as that figure who looked like an icy lotus. That's right, any sickness. So Ling Chen doesn't need to worry about us getting sick, Shadisika said as she smiled. After seeing Shadisika cure the Isrock disease and the technology she had, Ling Chen would believe her words no matter how outrageous they sounded. Looking at the small bottle in her hand, Ling Chen's gaze trembled. He was unable to forget about that figure in his mind and those words, and he said, Sha, can I have this bottle? Of course you can. Ling Chen can have as many as he wants. After saying this, Shadisika handed this bottle to Ling Chen and asked as she cocked her head, Ling Chen, are you sick? No, with Ling Chen's body, it's unlikely he gets sick. Dinner's nearly ready. I should go back to the kitchen. Come and eat when it's done. Holding the small bottle in his hand, Ling Chen's mind wandered, and he didn't even notice Shadisika running back to the kitchen. After a while, he called out, Ingshi. Soon, 2 beautiful figures appeared and came before Ling Chen. What is it, master? Give this to Li Xiaoshui and tell her to quickly give it to Gu Qing. Tell her that this should be able to cure her of her chronic illness, Ling Chen said as he handed them the bottle that Shadisika had just given him. A strange look appeared on Chao Ying and Chao Shi's faces. They took the bottle and nodded, and prepared to leave. Wait! Ling Chen stopped them as he said, Tell Li Xiaoshui not to tell Gu Qing that this came from me. Yes, we'll deliver it immediately. Although it was not raining very hard, it lasted for a long time. Even after night fell, the rain did not stop, and it covered all of Suhang City. After receiving the medicine from Chao Ying and Chao Shi, she immediately went to deliver it to Gu Qinghan. "Thank you, Xiao Shui, for being so considerate. You even brought it here yourself. Looks like this ordinary-looking medicine will be quite extraordinary." After receiving the small bottle without any labels, Gu Qinghan's expression became warmer. Li Xiaoshui smiled as she nodded. "This medicine is from an extraordinary person, so I'm fairly certain that it will be able to fully cure Ani Gu's sickness. All in all, thank you, Xiao Shui. I'll try it out. Please also thank that extraordinary person for me." Gu Qinghan lightly nodded before her eyebrows twitched. Her sickness acted up the most during rainy and dark days. Although her expression was calm, the bones in her legs were incredibly sore and numb, making her feel unimaginable pain. "All right, I won't disturb Anigu then. I hope this medicine will be able to help Anigu make a full recovery soon." Li Xiaoshui got up, waved Gu Qinghan goodbye, and then began to leave. Just as she was about to reach the door, Gu Qinghan suddenly called out, "Wait! Xiaoshui, how has Ling Chen been recently?" Only when mentioning the name Ling Chen would this famous and imposing Gu Qinghan reveal such emotions. Li Xiaoshui turned around and looked at Gu Qinghan, whose eyes filled with longing, and she felt an ache within her heart. After struggling with some internal conflict, she couldn't take it anymore, and softly said, "It was him who asked me to give this to you." The instant Li Xiaoshui turned around again, she saw Gu Qinghan cover her face with tears streaming down her face. She knew that these words were the closest Gu Qinghan had come to happiness over the past 20 years. Even if that medicine did not work, it would not matter. Even if that bottle was filled with poison, she would still drink it without hesitation. Eternal hatred to the Long family. A few days later, a shocking piece of news rocked the entire Chinese gaming world. The Yin Huang Alliance's alliance master Long Tian Yun had led the entire guild and all of its subsidiaries to join Ling Tian City. Moreover, he had publicly announced that they would not receive any power and would only become a subsidiary of Ling Tian City. This news shocked all Chinese players, including those who belonged to Ling Tian City. They simply couldn't believe it or accept it. Even though the Yin Huang Alliance's strength was far below that of Ling Tian City's, it was still a central power that had existed for more than 10 years. What's more, it had the Long family, the family with the most power in China, backing it. Furthermore, its alliance master was extremely arrogant and haughty. How could the Yin Huang Alliance be willing to become another power's subsidiary? Not too long after, another bombshell had been dropped. China's highest authority Long Zhengyang had personally announced to media that Ling Tian City would become China's new central power and would represent all Chinese players on the international level. The Chinese region was completely shaken. Those who heard about these things were completely dumbfounded. All sorts of doubts were soon dispelled when Long Tian Yun personally brought the entire Yin Huang Alliance in front of Ling Tian City and completed the procedures to become a subsidiary. What caused people to feel the most shock was that during the entire process, Long Tian Yun had acted incredibly respectfully, not showing any of his usual arrogance at all. He obediently nodded when Ling Tian City's people announced all of the rules, and he did not even say anything. The only person who knew what was going on was Ling Chen. "Master, what's going on? Why is the Yin Huang Alliance joining us? Master, you never allowed us to work with them. What's going on?" The Reapers were all confused, and they turned to look at Ling Chen. "Work together? Of course we're not working together. I just took a new loyal dog, that's all," Ling Chen said as he smiled. The incredibly intelligent Reapers were completely dumbfounded by his word. Guya tapped his ears as he came closer and asked uncertainly, "A loyal dog?" "That's right. Ling Chen nodded as he smiled. I already told him that all of you and the leaders of Ling Tian City can order this loyal dog around as you want. You can send him on errands, discipline him, curse at him, and he won't refuse or retaliate. Furthermore, don't forget about Ingya and Gui Dao's deaths. You can vent your anger on him however you like, for as long as you like. The Reapers were all completely flabbergasted. After a while, Guya finally hesitantly asked, Could it be some kind of mind control? Master's mental energy is unrivaled in the world, but Master doesn't seem to have this sort of ability. Even if this sort of ability existed, wouldn't it be too ridiculous? Heh! Ling Chen did not immediately reply, and instead strangely smiled. Long Tian Yun's coming over. If you want to vent out your anger on him, you'll be able to do it soon. After Ling Chen finished speaking, Long Tian Yun ran over. Seeing Ling Chen, he leapt over and knelt down in front of Ling Chen, giving a loud kowtow as he said with an expression full of respect that tried to curry favor. I respectfully greet Master. The Yin Huang Alliance is now a subsidiary of Ling Tian City. Please check over it, Master. Even though Ling Chen had hinted at this, the Reapers all stared with wide eyes, their jaws almost dropping to the ground, when they saw Long Tian Yun laying there like a dog. This person was the High and Mighty Alliance Master of the Yin Huang Alliance. He was famous throughout all of China, and put nothing in his eyes, the young master of the Long family. Well done, Ling Chen said with a look of appreciation on his face. He turned to Guya and the others and said, I believe you all know about Long Zhengyam coming to find me a few days ago. Don't worry. Long Tianya, who was related to the Long family, died 10 or so years ago and was killed by them. Now my surname is Ling, and I'll always be your Adam, not Long Tianya. I'm not so stupid and merciful as to forget all of the pain and hatred. What they owe me, I will take back completely, regardless of why they did everything back then. I will never forget Ingya and Gui Dao's deaths. Ling Chen stretched out a finger and pointed at Long Tian Yun on the ground. Now, go and do what you want to this young master of the Long family. Vent all of your anger, through any means you'd like, on his body. His life is still long, and he won't be able to die even if he wants to. You have unlimited time to torment him, so don't hold back. Ling Chen's words caused all of the Reapers' gazes to fall on Long Tian Yun's body, and their eyes became red. I definitely won't let Master die before me. No, even if I die, I won't let Master die. Old bastard, don't you dare die either. Die my ass. I still haven't gotten a wife yet. How can I die now? Hurry up and piss off. Gui Dao's final words sounded out in Gui Ya's ears. However, back then, he never thought that those would be Gui Dao's last words. During that night, Ingya, the youngest among them, had trapped the savage Tiger Corps' leader in a deathly bear hug after his legs had been broken, and ignited the explosives on him. He roared, Hurry up and go. If you don't go, I won't call you guys my big brothers in the next life. After that, amidst an explosion of fire, he blew himself up along with the savage Tiger Corps chasing after them. Ling Chen's words caused the events of that night to surface in the Reapers' minds. Their eyes became red with grief and hatred. They madly rushed towards Long Tian Yun, raining down blows on his body and face. You bastard! Give us our brothers' lives back! You animal! Bastard! I'll make you wish you were dead. This punch is for Gui Dao. This punch is for Ingya. Your life isn't worth as much as even a single strand of hair on their heads. I'll torture you every day so that their souls in heaven will feel happy. Ha ha! You dared to kill my brothers. I'll make you wish for death every day. They hit Long Tian Yun incredibly savagely. Punches and kicks were unlike attacks from weapons. There was no pain reduction. The damage they dealt was quite small, and their only priest continuously healed Long Tian Yun to prevent him from dying. Even if he wanted to die and escape these attacks, he simply wasn't able to. At the beginning, Long Tian Yun's screams had been incredibly pitiful, but soon, his throat became so hoarse that he couldn't make a sound anymore. Ling Chen clenched his fists as he watched the Reapers madly attacking Long Tian Yun. It had been a long time since that night, but he had not done anything to take revenge. He was afraid that these Reapers would be injured again or die. After all, they could not fight against the Long family's strength. He knew that many of them had been heavily injured, and Gui Dao and Ing Ya's deaths had weighed heavily on their hearts, making them loathe the Long family. They could now finally vent out that hatred and receive some peace. Long Zhengyang, did you really think that calling me Tianya and saying that you had secret troubles while kneeling would make me forgive all of you? Ling Chen coldly smiled. The coldness I was shown when I was younger, all your attempts to harm me, the pain I suffered in heaven and hell, Diao Wu's suffering for 10 years, Shui Ruo's passing, Ingya and Gui Dao's deaths, and Meng Xian and Suer's incidents. How could you pay all that back with just a few words and some kneeling? I don't care what sort of secret troubles you had. All of the suffering in my life was because of your Long family. I'll make your Long family fall from the highest heights, so that you have nothing. Ling Chen slowly raised his head, looking up at the blue sky. When the words Long family appeared in his mind, there was no mercy in his eyes or heart at all. Long Tian Yun was beaten up by the furious Reapers for a whole 2 hours. After venting out their anger, the Reapers all looked incredibly refreshed and at peace. They happily went to carry out their duties. Long Tian Yun, whose body had been continuously violated, lay in a tangled heap on the ground. His entire body spasmed. He could not even stand up, his face so swollen that even his own father would not recognize him. Luckily, this was in the virtual world. If it was in the real world, he would have become a meat paste after all of those savage hits from the Reapers. Collecting this debt felt quite good. Ling Chen laughed and clicked his fingers, allowing him to come back to his senses as he said slowly, Long Tian Yun, how does it feel? Long Tian Yun's body trembled as he regained control of his body and mind. He endured the pain throughout his body and looked at Ling Chen with his eyes that were so swollen that they could barely open. However, there was no hatred or arrogance in them, only despair and pleading. Spare me! Ling Tian! I beg you, please spare me, please! I won't offend you ever again. Ho! You're the high and mighty young master of the Long family, and yet you know how to beg to someone like this? Ling Chen laughed. He felt quite pleased upon seeing Long Tian Yun's appearance, and felt no pity or mercy at all. For an instant, a slight hint of animosity appeared in Long Tian Yun's eyes, before transforming back to a look of deep fear and pleading. After experiencing all these things over the past few days, it was thousands of times worse than his worst nightmare. He felt as if he was living in a dark dream, making him want to die. However, although his mind was clear, he was unable to do anything he wanted, and dying was simply a pipe dream. Ling Tian! I beg you, just spare me. I'm your big brother. Ling Tian, let me go. I'll do anything. Long Tian Yun desperately pleaded in despair, but Ling Chen only mockingly laughed. How pitiful. The young master of the Long family actually fell into such straits. But why don't I feel any sympathy at all? Click. Ling Chen once again clicked, bringing Long Tian Yun under his control again. He didn't even bother to look at Long Tian Yun, because that would dirty his eyes. Ling Chen turned around as he said, Stop lying on the ground like a dog. Go and work hard for me. There'll be many more rewards like this in future. Yes. Yes, master. Long Tian Yun looked like an obedient little dog, enduring the pain as he got up and rushed towards the Yin Huang Alliance's headquarters. a big scare with the Yin-Huang alliance as a loyal subsidiary, Ling Tian City's strength grew to a level where nothing could shake it. Chinese players also raced to join Ling Tian City, and soon, joining the Ling Tian City became a type of glory. Even though the lady of Ling Tian City was extremely kind and beautiful, the rules that she set were not gentle at all. Even though Ling Tian City was extremely powerful, it never bullied players or other powers. If a player violated any of the city's rules, the most severe punishment was being kicked out or even being permanently banished from Ling Tian City. The Dark Knight, which had joined Ling Tian City, no longer took assassination jobs. Instead, their targets became evildoers who disrupted the peace in Ling Tian City. Once targeted by the Dark Knight, unless one never went back into the game, it was impossible for them to escape. As such, Ling Tian City's reputation was also quite good, and its status rose day by day. At the same time, the development of Ling Tian City caused some of the other countries' players to feel terror. Ling Tian City was filled with gold-grade equipment and high-quality potions, making the average strength of Chinese players to rise above those of players of other countries. The speed at which they leveled up, and their average level, started to rise above those of other countries' players more and more so. After becoming China's central power, more and more Chinese players gathered at Ling Tian City, causing China's enemies to become more and more unsettled. As such, the pressure from various governments in the real world became greater and greater, and many worried countries started to ally together. In the real world, movements to assassinate Ling Tian City's beautiful lady began, but they were unable to even find Yunmeng Xian Shadow. Because of how powerful Ling Tian City had become, and how quickly Chinese players were now leveling up, those who had acted arrogantly towards China completely changed their attitude. Despite allying together, no one was willing to enrage this ferocious lion, because the world barriers could be opened at any day, and no one wanted to become China's first target. A week later, Suer's Heaven Secret's power could finally be used again. This time, 3 words were revealed to her, and these 3 words caused Ling Chen to feel so shocked that he jumped up into the air. Moon! God! Palace? Are you sure it was those 3 words? Ling Chen grabbed Suer's slim arms as he stared at her. Yes, it was those 3 words. Suer nodded as she looked at Ling Chen with her innocent eyes. She had helped him locate his things many times, but she had never seen such a reaction from him before. She weakly asked, Big brother Ling Tian, what sort of place is the Moon God Palace? Is it very scary? But it sounds like a very pretty place. The environment itself might be very beautiful, Ling Chen said as his mouth twitched. God damn it, how could it not be pretty? That was where the most powerful clan in the mystic moon world, the Moon God clan, lived. That was where the 3 moon goddesses were. The places where the lunar scourge's orbs were all strange and dangerous places. Ling Chen was mentally prepared for something like this, and he expected somewhere even more extreme than the underworld Blood Lake. However, that place had still given him a big scare. The Moon God Palace was separated from the continents, and it was the most secret, holy, and closely guarded place in the mystic moon world. It was a place of absolute power and faith, the peak existence in the mystic moon world. Even the Shura, that had destroyed 1/10 of a continent, had been suppressed by the Moon God clan. Even though Ling Chen was powerful, in front of the Moon God clan, he was like an ant in front of a mountain. Let alone the 3 moon goddesses, and the guardian beast 8-winged heaven tiger, even a moon god representative would be able to send him running. Let alone him, even the underworld king would not dare to charge in there. Putting all this aside, if the Moon God clan discovered that the lunar scourge was on him, he would be hunted down by them. Just this reason alone was enough to make him not want to go. The information that the next orb was in the Moon God Palace made Ling Chen feel as if he had been struck by lightning, and he almost coughed up blood. The Moon God clan knew better than anyone how terrifying the lunar scourge was, and they feared it more than anyone else. If one of the orbs was in the possession of the Moon God clan, they would definitely have it locked up in the most secure and secret place. The Moon God Palace was one of the most powerful places in the mystic moon world, and its location was extremely secret, let alone a player like him. Even the rare Saint Destroyer experts might not be able to succeed. Goddamn. Ling Chen scratched his head, feeling distraught to the point of tears. A long time ago, Qi Yu had raised the possibility of one of the Lunar Scourge's orbs being with the Moon God clan, but he had never thought that he would have to face them so soon. He knew that he would have to fight against the Moon God clan because he had the Lunar Scourge, but it should at least be when he was max level, had maxed out his equipment and skills, and had completely restored the Lunar Scourge. Even then, he would feel unprepared. "Big brother Ling Tian, are you going to leave for a while again?" Seeing the complicated look on Ling Chen's face, Shura asked worriedly. After waiting for a while, Ling Chen still did not reply, so she shook Ling Chen's arm. "Big brother Ling Tian, will it be dangerous this time?" "Don't worry, I'm sure there's nothing that Big brother Ling Tian can't do. I'm sure that you'll definitely find what you want this time as well." Shura's words caused Ling Chen to feel a warmth within his heart. Looking at Shura, he remembered how she had almost died from the Isrock disease not too long ago, and the fear he felt towards the Moon God Palace immediately decreased. Indeed, even the Isrock disease, which could cause anyone to despair, was overcome with Sha's miraculous medicine. As long as he believed in himself and persevered, he would be able to create a miracle. Moon God Palace. So what if it was the Moon God Palace? He had passed through many dangerous places before, so why wouldn't he be able to survive the Moon God Palace? Moreover, he was only going in to find something, not fight countless Moon God representatives and the 3 Moon Goddesses. With the Fengchen sect's escaping skills, he did indeed have a chance at success. Moreover, for Shura, even if he had to fight with the Moon God clan, he would not retreat. Ling Chen's gaze became resolute as he nodded and said, "Yes, I'll have to leave for a while. However, what Su said is right. There's nothing I can't do. This time I'll succeed again. I must succeed. I believe in Big Brother Ling Tian," Shura said with admiration and worship. Ling Chen lowered his head and repeated the words Moon God Palace to himself. Apart from knowing that it was the central place of the Moon God clan, he knew nothing about it, and he didn't even know where it was, let alone the situation within it. After thinking for a while, Ling Chen went to a place with no one around and took out a white hairpin. This was the hairpin that the Forgotten God representative had given him after he had successfully used the soul-stealing curse on her, and it could be used to contact her. He said in a low voice, "Wu Kai Ling, come to where I am." Ling Chen did not have to wait for long. Less than a minute later, a pure white woman's figure appeared above Ling Chen. She was wearing a moon-white dress, and there was a white fog around her, giving off an ethereal air. It looked as if she was standing on clouds, looking down at creation like an inviolable goddess. She immediately noticed where Ling Chen was, and she quickly came down to him. The fog around her disappeared, revealing her beautiful appearance, and she said with happiness and respect, "Ling Tian, did you call me? There are a few things I want to ask you. Do you know where the Moon God clan's Moon God Palace is?" Ling Chen asked seriously. Everything about the Moon God clan was a secret to outsiders. As a Moon God representative, she would never reveal the Moon God clan's secrets. However, even though the soul-stealing curse was not as cruel as the soul-killing curse, it was still quite powerful. After using soul-stealing curse on her, the Forgotten God representative did not resist Ling Chen's words at all, and she unhesitatingly replied, The Moon God Palace is located on the Moon God Island at the center of the Mystic Moon's ocean, and it is about 30,000 kilometers away from the Forgotten Continent. The center of the ocean? Ling Chen was quite surprised. 20% of the Mystic Moon world was land, and 80% was water. If it was at the center of the ocean, it would be considerably far from any continent. Wait. Fudge. 30,000 kilometers? If he flew over, just when would he be able to arrive? If it's so far away, how do you go to and fro? Could it be that you have to travel 30,000 kilometers every time? Ling Chen frowned as he asked. Of course not. At the boundary of every continent, there's a teleportation channel created by the moon goddesses. Entering any of those teleportation channels will bring us back to the Moon God Palace. However, only Moon God representatives with Moon God power will be able to use these teleportation channels. Other living creatures will not be able to use them. The Forgotten God representative said earnestly before she hesitatingly asked, Is Master asking these things because he wants to go to the Moon God Palace? That's right, Ling Chen replied. I also want to know about who resides in the Moon God Palace, as well as how it's structured and any secrets it possesses. Oh, and any weaknesses that the moon goddesses might have. The Forgotten God representative looked quite shocked as she hurriedly said, Please don't do it. That place does not allow any outsiders to enter or even go near. Moreover, you have the lunar scourge on you, and if you're found out by one of the moon goddesses or a moon god representative, you'll be hunted down by the entire clan. If that happens, you won't be able to escape even if you run to the edge of the world, so please don't go. That's right, there's also a spatial restriction that the moon goddess has set up around the Moon God Palace. Only moon god representatives will be able to freely enter and exit, so even if you go, you won't be able to go near. She genuinely cared and worried about Ling Chen, because her soul now belonged to Ling Chen. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I'm not stupid enough to do something that would bring me great danger, Ling Chen replied. The Forgotten God representative committed all of Ling Chen's questions to memory before starting to answer them. Apart from the 3 moon goddesses, there are 283 official moon god representatives. 180 or so of them have been sent to the various continents to keep the order there, so there are around 100 or so left in the Moon God Palace. There are also 2,000 moon ladies, who are weaker than the moon god representatives, as well as 200 or so apprentice moon god representatives. Wait, how strong are the moon ladies and apprentice moon god representatives? The weakest moon ladies are Heaven's End grade. Those who are below Heaven's End grade are not qualified to enter the Moon God Palace. Most of the apprentice Moon God representatives are quite young, but after receiving Moon God power, they're all at least Heaven's End grade, and some geniuses are close to Mysterious God grade. The Forgotten God representative replied. Fudge! Ling Chen inwardly groaned. In the human world, Heaven's End grade beings were almost invincible, and they were super existences in the mystic moon world. And yet, they were the weakest in the Moon God Palace. See continue. Ling Chen's voice started to slightly tremble, as cold sweat started to drip down his forehead. Was he really going to go to that absurd place? With his strength, he wouldn't be qualified to even deliver vegetables. There are 81 moon god shrines in the Moon God Palace, and each moon god shrine has hundreds of moon god pavilions. Every official moon god representative has their own moon god pavilion. Even after they die, their moon god pavilion will be maintained. The Moon God Palace's structure is like the stars in the sky, with shrines everywhere, and the moon god pavilions are also chaotically organized within the moon god shrines. It's very easy for those who aren't familiar with that place to get lost. As for any secrets, I rarely return to the Moon God Palace, so I don't know. The 3 moon goddesses are usually in the first shrine, and they almost never leave. This is because there hasn't been anything that has required them to come out over these past years. As for their weaknesses, the three moon goddesses have peerless power, and they don't have any weaknesses. However, there are two people who they fear. One is the underworld's underworld king, Ming Sa, your father-in-law, and the other is the Sea Emperor Helos. There isn't much else that I know. Over the past 100 years or so, I've only gone back to the Moon God Palace 3 times, and each time I've only stayed for a short period of time. Perhaps much has changed since I've gone back. Are you really going to go there? The Forgotten God representative suddenly remembered something and said anxiously, "Could it be that you're going there to retrieve the Lunar Scourge's Saint Orb?" Saint Orb? There's a Saint Orb in the Moon God Palace? Ling Chen felt incredibly excited as he walked forwards. That's right. Since you were able to tell that I had the Lunar Scourge on me, you should have some understanding towards the Lunar Scourge and its orbs, right? Have you seen that orb before? Are you sure it's a Saint Orb? Which one is it? And where is it kept? The Forgotten God representative felt at a bit of a loss, but she did not hide anything. About 2 months ago, the goddess Fate summoned me to the Moon God Palace and told me that it was likely that the Lunar Scourge was going to reemerge. She gave me something that would react when I came close to the Lunar Scourge, which allowed me to find out that it was on you. The goddess Fate was able to sense that the Lunar Scourge was going to reemerge because of the Saint Orb in the Moon God Palace. From about a year ago, the Saint Orb would occasionally light up, and it has been doing this more and more frequently. Saint Orb? So it's really a Saint Orb? Which one? The Star God Orb? Moon God Orb? Sun God Orb? The word Saint Orb caused Ling Chen's blood to boil, and he began to feel much less fear towards the Moon God Palace. Over time, he had realized just how powerful the Lunar Scourge's orbs were, and despite obtaining 11 God Orbs, he had not obtained a single Saint Orb. If the God Orbs were already so powerful, just how heaven-defying would the Saint Orbs be? He had always been anticipating the day that he would obtain a Saint Orb, and this was the first time that he had heard about the location of a Saint Orb. It's the Moon God Orb. That's what the goddess Fate told me. Facing Ling Chen's burning gaze, the Forgotten God representative hurriedly replied, Moon God Orb. Moon God Orb, one of the 3 Saint Orbs. Ling Chen instantly grinned, then asked, "Where is it kept?" The Forgotten God representative looked at Ling Chen worriedly and lowered her head as she said in a soft voice, "That orb was stored in the Moon God Palace since a long time ago. However, it is kept by the goddess Fate in the first shrine, and only the 3 moon goddesses can enter." Ling Chen frowned. Only the 3 moon goddesses could enter the first shrine. Not even moon god representatives had the right to go in there. Evidently, that was the most difficult place in the Moon God Palace to enter. The fact that the Saint Orb was in the Moon God Palace was already difficult enough, but it was also in the toughest place to get into. No matter how well-tempered Ling Chen was, he felt the urge to curse loudly. He committed what the Forgotten God representative had said to memory, then slowly nodded. "All right, I understand. You can go back now. If there's anything you need, feel free to summon me whenever." The Forgotten God representative said reluctantly as she gave a small bow. Just as she turned around to leave, a slight struggle appeared on her face, and she finally turned to face Ling Chen again as she took out a white hairpin and gave it to Ling Chen. If you really must go to the Moon God Palace, take this with you. You will only be able to break through the spatial restriction around the Moon God Palace with this." Ling Chen looked at the hairpin in her hands, then slowly shook his head. "It's all right. If you lose it, you'll be punished by the Moon God clan. Plus, I don't need it." How did you know?" The Forgotten God representative was quite surprised and felt quite touched by his concern. "It's because I already have one." Ling Chen smiled, then took out a hairpin that looked exactly the same as the Forgotten God representative's apart from the fact that it looked slightly older. That's one of our clan's moon god hairpins. The Forgotten God representative cried out. How do you have one? Don't worry, I didn't take it from one of your clan's people. I obtained it at a place called the Moon God Ruins. It was left behind by a deceased moon god representative, and the power it contains should be enough to break through the spatial restriction around the moon god palace, Ling Chen said as he waved the moon god hairpin. He had obtained this from a dark undead moon god representative, and he had not thrown it away because the description had said that it could allow him to pass into the moon god palace. It seems like he will finally use it now. Seeing the Forgotten God representative's reaction, it seemed that it would be possible for him to use the one in his hands. In that case, if you have to go, please be careful. If something happens to you, As she spoke, the Forgotten God representative almost began sobbing. This high and mighty moon god representative, who had seemed so cold and domineering when he had first met her, was now acting so meekly and gently. The soul-stealing curse was simply too powerful. Ling Chen did not have to worry about her revealing that he had a moon god hairpin either. He had indeed received some information from summoning the Forgotten God representative. At the very least, he had confirmed that the Lunar Scourge's orb was in the Moon God Palace. However, putting aside whether he could obtain the orb or if he could successfully enter the Moon God Palace, Ling Chen first had to solve the problem of how he was going to get to Moon God Island. In order to reach the ocean, he needed to leave the Forgotten Continent, and in order to leave the Forgotten Continent, he needed to pass through the world boundary. The world boundary had not been opened yet, so just finding a way through that was a big issue. Last time, he had gone to the East Ocean continent using the dwarves' world boundary scroll, and he had already used that. Ling Chen tapped his chin and left for the dwarves' district. Author's note: the moon god orb of the three saint orbs is about to appear. Oh, there are only 11 god orbs so far, and there's still one left. Actually, the Aries orb's effects are too trash, so it's fine to forget it for now. Fey Returns. All of the most talented dwarves, including Chief Dillo, were closed off from the rest of the world while earnestly studying the underworld god canon. World boundary scroll. Elder Dita thought for a while before slowly nodding. If we have the materials, it won't be too difficult to create a world boundary scroll. Really? Ling Chen grinned before marveling. No less than expected from the dwarf clan. I knew that this sort of thing would not be too difficult for you. Do you have the materials? Let me know if you need anything. Elder Dita thought for a moment before replying. We have all of the normal materials, but the core materials, gold pattern scrolls, can be bought at a high price, and we have quite a few Skybreak underworld stones from the underworld. The only things that we're missing are the precious spatial stones. Don't worry, I just so happen to have a spatial stone, though it's a bit small. As Ling Chen spoke, he took out a fist-sized spatial stone and handed it over to Elder Dita. Oh, that's enough, that's enough. The spatial energy that this spatial stone contains will be enough to create 10 world boundary scrolls. It's just that. Elder Dita's expression became somewhat embarrassed. The ones who are not working on the underworld god canon are not very talented, and adding on the fact that creating the world boundary scroll is very difficult, it will take a bit longer than normal. How long will you need? About a month, Elder Dita replied truthfully. A month? That was quite long, but he could afford to wait. Ling Chen nodded. No worries, a month it is. Let me know as soon as it's done. All right, no problem. Working for you is our joy and honor, Elder Dita happily replied. After leaving the dwarves' district, Ling Chen's calm expression crumbled as he moaned. A month? A whole month? Forget it. I'll just wait a month then. Ling Chen took out a map of the forgotten continent, and after looking at it, his gaze fell on a region about 50 kilometers south of the fairy forest. Right there. Since I can only leave after a month, I'll level up as much as possible during this time. I'll try to reach LV80 after a month. After making this decision, Ling Chen took out a spatial orb and directly went south of the fairy forest. As leveling up in the Mystic Moon world became more and more difficult, wanting to level up from LV62 to LV80 in a single month was simply a pipe dream to most players. Let alone LV80, even LV70 would not be possible. What's more, Ling Chen had the Heaven's Jealousy debuff, so wanting to level up from LV62 to LV80 was simply ridiculous. With his own strength, this would simply be impossible. However, he had Shi Ling, a super pet who could instantly wipe out an entire mob of monsters with a single attack. Mutant Purple Scaled Snake, type, Demonic Beast, level, LV80, HP, 5000. A strangely shaped snake that is covered with purple spots. Its body is long and thin, but it possesses incredibly powerful venom. It moves as fast as lightning, and it is feared by all creatures as a very dangerous creature. Passive abilities. All attacks have a 100% chance of applying lethal poison, and it has incredibly fast attacks and movement speed. Attack skills. Violet Extreme Poison Lightning, Deadly Snake Saliva, weaknesses, has weak HP and defense, and fears wind and fire attacks. What a Big Cow type, Beast, level, LV80, HP, 66,000. A normal mountain cow that is mutated. It has always wanted to lose weight, but it has never been able to succeed, causing its personality to become violent. It will ferociously attack any animal smaller and thinner than it. Passive abilities. Fairly strong defense, and its attacks have a chance to knock down the target, as well as a 20% chance of interrupting the casting of magic. Attack skills. What a Big Cow, 10,000 Cow Surge, weaknesses, low intelligence, and it cannot attack for a while after launching an attack. The vast map was densely populated with small purple snakes and large cows, and it was surprising to see such different monsters occupying the same space. However, within the nearest 50 kilometers, there was no other place where monsters were gathered so densely. There would definitely be no one coming to interrupt him in territory that contained dangerous LV80 monsters. Ling Chen found a safe region and relaxedly sat on the grass as he summoned Shi Ling and Xiao Hui while waving his hand. Go Shi Ling and Xiao Hui! A piercing cry sounded out as Shi Ling rose into the air. She flapped her wings, sending down 9 inferno heavenly flames. In an instant, the cloudless sky was dyed golden by the flames. Minus 356,000, minus 356,000, minus 356,000, dash 356,000. With Shi Ling's terrifying destructive power, killing these normal monsters was simply a waste of her strength. In just a second, the surrounding 100 meters of purple snakes and giant cows were completely annihilated. If it wasn't for Xiao Hui devouring the corpses, Shi Ling would have used even more powerful flames to incinerate these monsters into nothing. In just a moment, Ling Chen's LV62 EXP bar greatly swelled. Xiao Hui quickly ran around, quickly devouring corpses and picking up the dropped items. Shi Ling moved around, raining down 9 inferno heavenly flames wherever she went. Ling Chen looked at his rapidly increasing EXP bar with satisfaction and nodded. From this, it seemed that it would take less than a month for him to reach LV80. What should he do during this period of time? Master, I want to listen to a story. Lung Er, who had also come out, instinctively stuck to Ling Chen and started shaking his arm. Now, not only did Ling Er's personality become even sweeter, but she also gave off an enchanting air. Adding on her innocent and timid nature, any man's bestial nature would be aroused upon seeing her. However, the only one who could enjoy being with this beauty was Ling Chen. He put his hands around Langaire's slim waist and gently pushed her down onto the grass as he whispered in her ear, "Do you want to listen to a story or play the game?" "Play the game!" Langaire's jet-black eyes blinked as she nodded. "Okay." After speaking with her tender voice, her clothes disappeared, because playing the game with her master was now her favorite thing, to the point that she liked it more than her dolls. Underneath Ling Chen, Langaire's naked body looked like a jade doll. Her waist was incredibly slim, and her butt was small but perky. Her small legs were supple and tender, and the pinkness between her legs was incredibly cute. "Let's start!" Ling Chen pressed down with his body, his evil hands rubbing her soft chest. Langaire moaned in her cute voice, and she wrapped her snow-white arms around him, her toes clenching in excitement and anticipation. In the air, Ling continuously cried out as the countless monsters below howled as they were killed. A light breeze blew across the plains, bringing with it the sounds of a girl's moans. To Ling Chen, there was nothing more enjoyable than playing the game while rapidly increasing his EXP and Langaire's favorability towards him. These days, most of Ling Chen's time was spent letting Ling farm EXP for him. He spent most of his time playing the game with Langaire. Her cute body made it so that he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. He did it with her at least once every day, and it was to the point that it almost became part of his daily routine. Over the past few days, he tried almost every position he knew on her, and Langaire, who enjoyed playing the game, obediently did whatever she was told. Of course, he made sure that the little Kair was not around. Otherwise, she would be corrupted. As for Ling, she was most likely used to seeing it by now. 10 days alter. Ding! Congratulations, you have leveled up to LV 70, HP plus 20, MP plus 20, Strength plus 5, Agility plus 1, Spirit plus 1. Ding! Your pet Xiaohui has leveled up to LV 70, Skill, Holy Spirit's Aura, has leveled up to LV 5, Skill, Holy Spirit's Pearl, has been leveled up to LV 3, and a new Holy Spirit's Pearl will be created. Ding! Your pet Xiaohui has created a new Holy Spirit's Pearl, which has been transferred into your item space. Ding! Your pet Ling has leveled up to LV 70. Skill, Phoenix Sky Dance, has been leveled up to LV 7, and she will be able to create 7 golden phoenixes at most. Ding! Your pet Langaire has leveled up to LV 70. Skill, Soul Lock, has been leveled up to LV 3. Ding! Your pet Langaire's favorability towards you plus 2 to 69, Infatuation. Ding! Your Mount-type pet Snow Cherry has leveled up to LV 70. She now has 7 tails and can transform into any appearance. Ding! Your pet Kair has leveled up to LV 70, and all stats and skills have become stronger. After Ling continuously insta-killed her way through the map time and time again, Ling Chen reached LV 70 in just 10 days, and reclaimed the #1 ranking on China's player level rankings. After reaching LV 70, a stream of system announcements woke Ling Chen up. He rubbed his eyes and looked at his level before muttering, "Oh, I'm at LV 70 already." He then looked at his pet's skills and stats before falling back and preparing to continue napping. Since he had decided to go to the Moon God Palace to retrieve the Moon God Orb, leveling was a must, as well as resting. Just as Ling Chen closed his eyes again, his communication device sounded out, and as soon he picked up, he heard Guiya's excited voice. "Master, it's Fey. She's back, and Yola is also back too. And Saros. There's also Hannah, Disha, Green Eyes. They're all here." Ling Chen's eyes shot open, and he stood up with a whoosh, feeling incredibly excited as he hurriedly asked, "Where are you all?" "Ling Tian City's Central Meeting Hall." "I'll be there soon." Ling Chen immediately hung up and took out a spatial orb and yelled out, "Ling, shall we? Let's go!" At this moment, Ling Tian City's central meeting hall was incredibly lively and raucous. "Are you really going to join Ling Tian City?" Yun Feng's voice trembled, and he had to gulp down a mouthful of saliva with every word that he spoke. Heavens! Oh heavens! This is Eve, as well as the golden-eyed war god, and the entire demon god group? They're joining Ling Tian City? I'm dreaming, right? What, you don't welcome us? They crossed her arms and calmly looked at Yun Feng. Oh, of course we welcome you. Of course. Yun Feng gulped down another mouthful of saliva, unable to stop trembling at all. Eve was a peerless player who held the title of demon god, and she was someone who was worshipped by countless players. The demon god group that she led was a legendary group, and invincible was the only way to describe them. Even though they only had 100 or so people, they were publicly acknowledged to be the strongest player group. And now, Eve had brought her entire demon god group to Ling Tian City, and had announced that they were joining Ling Tian City. When Yun Feng confirmed that this was not a dream, his heart beat so fast that he almost couldn't take it anymore. You're all infinitely welcome. This is Ling Tian City's glory. Yun Ming Xian walked over and gave a heartfelt smile. She knew that Fei and the entire demon god group was joining Ling Tian City because of Ling Tian, and she more so knew what this meant for Ling Tian City. With Eve, the golden-eyed war god, and the demon god group, Ling Tian City's name would once again shake the world. In terms of battle strength, they would be completely invincible. Ling Tian City was already publicly acknowledged to be the most powerful player city in the East, and now that the strongest player in the West was bringing the strongest group in the West to join them, this news would shock countless players in the world. At the same time, the position of Ling Tian City within players' hearts would be elevated to a new level. Will you be joining permanently or temporarily? Even though Fei might not be happy with this question, in order to make future plans, Yun Feng mustered up the question to ask that question. Fei gently swept some of her flame-red hair behind her ears, as a frustrated expression appeared on her face. I made this decision somewhat rashly, but surprisingly, when I let everyone else know, none of them objected. In fact, they've been even more eager than me to come. She slightly pursed her red lips. Look, do you think they'd be willing to leave after I brought them here? At the other end of the meeting hall, laughter, crying, cursing, and sounds of fighting could be heard. Saras! It's been more than 7 years. We brothers can finally fight side by side again. Heh! Good brother, I've been waiting for this day over the past few years. Old Gui, we haven't seen each other in 7 years. Back then, you were acknowledged to be the ugliest among all of us, and now you're even uglier, bahaha. Screw your ancestors. You dare to insult me? Looks like your body's been itching for a beating after 7 years. Take this attack. Goto brother, who would have thought that we'd be reunited one day? This is great. Over the past week, I've been thinking about you all the entire time, especially that time we burned your clothes while you were all showering. Those white butts appeared in my heart, mind, and dreams. Fudge! You still dare to mention that. Brothers, go and beat him up. If we don't beat him up to the point that his own mother won't recognize him, I'll start walking backwards. Bang, slap, crash. A torrent of punches, slaps, and kicks were launched. Little Hannah, after all these years, did you miss your big brother Gui Jian? Humph. I'm Adam's woman. Who has the time to think of you? Where's Adam, and why isn't he back yet? Che. Of course, Master's with his women. He's definitely forgotten about little Hannah already. I'll beat you up. Black demon, white demon, purple demon, star demon, murder demon, green demon. Looking at these legendary experts, who he could only look up to in the past, Yun Feng continuously looked around at them, still doubting whether or not he was in a dream. Not only had they appeared in front of him, but they had also joined Ling Tian's city, and they were laughing, cursing, and even crying, just like normal people.
Looks like they're very close. They must have known each other since a long time ago,
Yunming Xian said as she smiled. Fei nodded as she said calmly,
the relationships between them have been forged from walking the boundary between life and death time and time again. Without experiencing everything that they went through together, it will be impossible for you to understand what sort of relationships they possess.
Yunming Xian fell silent, then deeply nodded.
Perhaps splitting up 7 years ago was a mistake, but we had no other choice. Everyone had things that they needed to go back to and families they wanted to see. After all these years, they've all completed the things that they wanted to do, so it's time for us to reunite. They've waited for this day for a long time.
Fei looked at Yunming Xian and said in a deep manner,
none of you Chinese players knew that our demon god group was only able to dominate the international mock battles because your Dark Knight never participated. Otherwise, the international mock battles would have been much more exciting. Ha ha.
Yun Feng dryly laughed as he scratched his head.
The main reason is because Ling Tian hid too well, and we only just found out that the Dark Knight belonged to Ling Tian this whole time.
At this moment, the sound of rapid footsteps running towards the door sounded out. Following this, the doors were opened as Ling Chen rushed in, staring at the hall full of people. Following this, he lightly stretched out his hand and took the evil god's mask off his face. The incredibly raucous hall instantly fell silent, and everyone stared at Ling Chen. After a whole 3 seconds, the hall was once again drowned in sound.
Adam! Adam! Adam!
Those who had been standing up, sitting down, lying down, or even sprawled on the floor instantly rushed over to the entrance and leapt at Ling Chen. Soon, they formed a massive pile, solidly locking Ling Chen in the middle. They all yelled, cried, and laughed. Yun Feng was completely stupefied, and Yunming Xian stared in shock before muttering,
looks like their relationship with Ling Tian is quite extraordinary. Of course.
Fei pursed her red lips as she smiled while looking at the massive pile of people.
Over the years we were together, his power, charisma, and incredibly stubborn personality won everyone over. He also saved many of their lives, and he took many stabs for them during training or dangerous missions. In the end, it was because of him that they were able to escape from that hellish prison. As such, he holds a very special position in their hearts. Even if they were asked to immediately give up their lives for him, none of them would even hesitate. So it's like that.
Yunming Xian muttered in awe. She didn't know anything about Ling Chen's past, and she didn't ask. However, she knew that it was even more legendary than a legend, an experience that was crueler than hell. Otherwise, how could he have such shocking strength and such loyal companions? He was incredibly cold, cruel, and merciless towards his enemies, but he was incredibly good to those around him. He did not want them to be hurt at all, and after Shura passed away, he was grieved to the point that he was willing to die. This sort of person would have many enemies, but he would never abandon or betray his companions.
However, it also looks like there are many debts of love that he needs to pay back.
Looking at the girls, who were unable to squeeze in and almost in tears, Yunming Xian lightly laughed.
Of course.
Fei rolled her eyes.
Out of the 19 girls I brought, there are 12 who are thinking about him every day. Even the cute little Yola by my side needs to mention him tens of times every day. You have no idea how excited they were when I said that I was going to bring them over. All good things are always taken by that demonic pervert. 12? So many?
Yun Feng's eyes widened.
Is that a lot?
Fei smiled.
There are about 30 or so girls in the Dark Knight, and at least 20 of them are his. Didn't you know about that? Uh-huh. This.
Yun Feng's jaw nearly dropped to the ground, and Yun Meng Xian's eyebrows leapt up.
There's nothing to be shocked about. Back at the place where we were before, the winner of the competition of strength every month would be able to choose a woman of their choice. He won every time, so those girls were all his for the taking. Moreover, that demonic pervert's very picky, and he only chooses the prettiest ones. Moreover, his appetite was massive, and all of the pretty ones have all been done by him before. Whether it's the Dark Knight or the Demon God group, any girl who you think is pretty has definitely been taken by him before. I don't know what sort of sorcery he used, but all of the ones he's taken have fallen completely in love with him, as if they've taken a medicine that lasts permanently. Including you?
Yun Meng Xian asked with a smile.
Me? I'm different from them. He didn't pick me, I picked him. The girls also had a competition where the victor could pick a man every month. Just like him, I always won, but unlike that demonic pervert, I only chose him every time.
Fey narrowed her eyes, while speaking in a calm voice that betrayed no jealousy at all. Evidently, she had become used to this, and she looked at Yun Meng Xian with great interest as she asked,
"Come to think of it, after hearing about all of this, and finding out about how big of a pervert he is, do you feel any jealousy or heartache? Don't tell me that you don't feel anything for him at all after such a long time."
Yun Meng Xian slightly lowered her head, then raised it after a while, and lightly smiled.
Just a little.
Only then did Yun Feng completely digest what Fei had said, and he stared with wide eyes as he asked,
Then, you're also Ling Tian's woman?
Fei glanced at him and said charmingly,
You can think of it that way. However, strictly speaking, he's my man. However, he's not very obedient, and he's very unfaithful. So, it's like that.
Yun Feng's eyes became even wider, and he stuttered.
So according to your words, only the prettiest ones. So am Mu Bingyao, and golden-eyed war god Yola, of course. Holy fudge!
Yun Feng felt as if his heart was going to explode. The demon god group was so loyal towards Ling Tian, and Eve was actually Ling Tian's woman, and Ling Tian. Anyone would be envious to death of this man. Begni Fei and the demon god group's arrival caused the Dark Knight and Ling Tian city's leaders to feel excited for a long time.
The visas and documentation for so many people will take some time to organize. When the time comes, you can announce it as you wish,
Fei said casually when she was finally alone with Ling Chen.
You want to come over in the real world as well?
Ling Chen asked in delight.
Of course. Since we've decided to reunite, we should do it properly, and not just in the game. Moreover, we want to come to China legally and properly,
Fei said, as she gave him an emphatic eye roll.
Even though neither of us won our bet, you still won in the end. Are you happy now, you big demonic pervert? Hee hee.
Ling Chen laughed, feeling very pleased.
No matter how domineering you are, you're still a woman. No matter how domineering a woman is, she's still destined to be dominated by a man. Submitting to me is what you should be doing, you ass.
Fei was furious, and her hands grabbed Ling Chen's collar like a streak of lightning. She applied some force, immediately knocking him down to the ground. She moved her legs over and sat on Ling Chen's midsection before she savagely said as she narrowed her eyes,
To make it up to me, I want to always be on top in the future. Fudge!
Ling Chen glared at her and flipped her over, pressing Fei's soft body on the ground. He grabbed at her large, soft breasts with his right hand and rubbed them as he lewdly smiled.
No way! As a man, I can give in to anything but that.
A numb feeling spread from her chest, bringing a red glow to Fei's face. Her body also softened, but she did not give in at all. She unreservedly kicked upwards with her right foot, knocking Ling Chen off of her, and she immediately sprang on him again. She grabbed out with her hands onto his vital area between his legs and said,
"If you don't let me be on top, I'll crush them." You wouldn't be willing, fudge. You're actually squeezing hard. If I allow you to do this, what will you not dare to do? If I don't make you beg for mercy today, I'm not a man. Come at me! You think I would be afraid of you?
A battle between Adam and Eve erupted. The battle began on the floor, then moved to the bed, then moved back to the floor. The sounds of pounding, spasming, moaning, and liquid shooting out could be heard, accompanied by a thicker and thicker smell. A whole 3 hours later, the battle finally ended. Yola, who had been standing outside the door the entire time, fell to the ground, her legs pressed tightly together, and her small hand vigorously pressing down on the wet patch on her dress. Fey rested her head on the headboard, her red hair cascading down her shoulders and her large, snow-white chest heaving. The legendary Eve's face was completely pink, her eyes hazy, and she gave off an enchanting air.
You asked for it, don't blame me.
Ling Chen was sitting in between Eve's long legs. He stretched his neck as he spoke in a refreshed manner.
A big demonic pervert like you would only use such demonic and perverted methods. You're just as shameless and despicable as before,
Fey said in a soft and breathless voice while her eyes were half closed. She could not remember how many times she had climaxed, and she only knew that she had been intoxicated by this demonic pervert pounding her time and time again, bringing her in and out of consciousness. The domineering front she had put up had completely crumbled.
I'm sure the only one who can mess around with you so long is me, right?
The defeated face smiled, giving off a bewitching air.
Refreshed? Very refreshed,
Ling Chen replied as he grinned.
As a reward, kiss me for a bit longer.
Fey closed her eyes as she parted her lips. Ling Chen took Fey into his arms, his chest pressing against her large breasts, and he kissed her soft, moist lips. Fey wrapped an arm around Ling Chen's neck, passionately returning the kiss. The two of their tongues continuously darted back and forth, exchanging their saliva. Ling Chen suddenly opened his eyes and let go of Fey as he hurriedly asked,
That's right, Fey. How did you bring them over? Are you able to easily pass through the world boundaries? And are you able to bring other people with you?
For Ling Chen to suddenly ask such a thing while they were just getting intimate, Fey was infuriated and viciously kicked Ling Chen off the bed. The bang, as well as Ling Chen's cry of shock, caused Yola, who had just stood up, to fall down again.
Lacus's spatial power can be used to pass through world boundaries.
Even though Ling Chen had coaxed her for a while, Fey was still quite angry.
After coming last time, we had to wait for a while before passing through the world boundaries again. In order to bring them here as quickly as possible, I focused all of my efforts into awakening the Lacus's power. Now, the Lacus is able to pass through world boundaries with ease, and I can take 30 people each time. I brought Yola and the others in waves to Ling Tian City. What, do you need to pass through the world boundary?
She could pass through world boundaries as she wished and even bring people with her? Ling Chen's eyes immediately lit up. What he had been searching for had showed up right in front of him. He should have realized last time that they had definitely passed through world boundaries to get here. With Fey's Lacuses, why would he need to wait for a consumable world boundary scroll?
Fey, I need you to help me with a little something using your Lacuses.
Ling Chen went over and held Fey's hand.
A little something?
Fey turned to look at him, playing with her disheveled hair as she said haughtily,
Since it's just a little something, the invincible Adam can go do it himself. Why would you need to rely on a woman like me? All right, it's a big something. What do I get in return?
Fey grinned.
You can be on top next time. What do you want to do?
Fey looked incredibly pleased, waving her lachesis rings in front of Ling Chen.
A place called the Moon God Island,
Ling Chen truthfully replied. With Fey's help, the issue of passing through the world boundary would be easily solved even though he had to pay a great price.
Moon God Island?
Fey's expression became strange.
Why do you need to go there? That's the Moon God clan's territory, and it is a place of utmost authority and holiness. It is also acknowledged to be the most dangerous place in the mystic moon world. Don't tell me you're desperate to get through the world boundary because you want to have a change of scenery.
Ling Chen was not at all surprised that Fey knew about Moon God Island. Before he even knew about the lachesis, she already knew a lot about the lunar scourge. Ling Chen nodded and said,
Of course, it's for something very important. One of the lunar scourge's orbs is there, and it's a saint orb, so I have to go. So it's like that.
Fey tapped her snow-white chin and thought for a moment before she slowly said,
The Moon God Island is located at the center of the Mystic Moon's ocean, and it is about 33,000 kilometers from the Forgotten Continent's boundary. Putting aside everything else, even if you travel in a straight line at full speed without stopping and do not meet any obstacles, it will still take you more than a month. Factoring in all sorts of problems, it's safe to say that it will take you roughly 3 to 4 months.
She calmly looked at Ling Chen and said in amusement,
From what I understand about you, you're not such a patient person, right?
In this world, Fey was definitely the person who understood Ling Chen the best. Anyone else who heard that he was going to such a dangerous place, like the Moon God Island, would definitely try to stop him, because no matter how powerful Ling Chen was, he was not able to fight against the Moon God clan. However, only Fey would not, because she understood Ling Chen's personality, and she knew that he would become more excited the more impossible a battle was.
It's indeed quite a long time.
Ling Chen helplessly waved.
I don't have any other choice, though. You should know how hard it is to find equipment that increases movement speed. Beg me.
Fey suddenly bewitchingly smiled and spread out 3 fingers.
I can let you get there in 3 hours. 3 hours? Are you serious?
Ling Chen's mouth widened in surprise.
My lachesis can control space. Traversing 1,000 kilometers takes but an instant. What do you say? However, that's not the important thing. What's important is that you need to beg me. If you don't beg me, I won't be so kind-hearted as to take you there for free.
Fey blinked her misty eyes, and her delighted smile looked so beautiful that it could topple a country. Ling Chen had personally seen the lachesis power. It could completely shatter and traverse space, so traveling through a world boundary would be no problem. Moreover, Fey, this terrifying and proud woman, would never say something that she wasn't sure of. What's more, just like him, this woman was incredibly stubborn. If he did not beg her, it would be impossible for her to help him. Ling Chen's expression immediately became one of flattering as he gently rubbed her large breasts while pleading,
All right, my little Fey, please take me there.
Fey slapped Ling Chen's hands away and smiled as she replied,
Since when was there such a lewd way of begging? It's the first I've seen something like that. I seem to remember that I've taught you how to beg before, but it seems like you've forgotten. I'll help you remember then. First, call me my great wife Dot. No way.
Ling Chen righteously shook his head and refused.
Since you can't dominate me in bed, don't try to dominate me in terms of addressing each other. This has to do with a man's principles, and I definitely can't give in. All right, looks like my lachesis will have to rest for 3 or 4 months then.
Fey played with her fingers, then flicked her head back as she equipped all of her equipment, hiding her snow-white body.
My great wife!
Ling Chen immediately yelled out the words that he had refused to say.
Good boy.
Fey smiled as she twisted her hips and jumped off the bed, and she said,
Let's go now then.
See cat.
Right now.
Ling Chen stared at her in surprise. This woman was so decisive that he almost didn't know how to react.
What? Do you still need to make preparations?
Fey looked at him flirtatiously.
Not really,
Ling Chen replied after thinking. The main thing was that he had thought that he would only be able to leave after a month, and he had forgotten about the Lacus's spatial powers. This time for set-off was much earlier than he had anticipated.
Leaving now isn't too bad either. Let's go!
As he spoke, Ling Chen also equipped his equipment and walked out of the room with Fey. Outside the door, Yola was standing there, looking incredibly embarrassed. Seeing them come out, she lowered her head as a redness quickly spread from her face to her neck.
Big sis, there's little Yola. Tell Saros and the others that I'm going to be leaving with Adam for a bit. It might take a long time, or it might be a short time. Even if we don't come back for half a month, don't worry about us, and don't go and do anything big. Just familiarize yourselves with Ling Tian City and the Forgotten Continent,
Fey said.
Okay, big sis, I'll go let them know immediately.
Yola hurriedly nodded, unable to raise her bright red face at all.
That's right. Can you also help me tell Yunmeng Xian and the others that I'll be leaving for a while, and tell the dwarf clan's elder Dita that I won't need the world boundary scroll anymore?
Ling Chen smiled as he spoke to Yola. He didn't feel embarrassed at all seeing Yola like this because Yola peeping on the battles between him and Fey had become a normal occurrence. It was just that it had been a long time since the last time. At the same time, the little Yola from before had grown up, and now knew how to be shy.
I got it. Also,
Fey suddenly grabbed Yola's little hand and whispered in her ear,
next time, we'll let little Yola join in as well, so don't run off, I'll immediately go find Saros and the others.
Yola covered her redder-than-red face as she rushed off. Just like that, the journey to invade the Moon God Palace, something that others would spend 8 to 10 years preparing for, was decided upon by this man and woman in just a few short sentences, and they didn't even tell the others beforehand. This was exactly how Adam and Eve had operated in the past.
Will it really take just 3 hours?
Even though Ling Chen trusted Fey, he simply couldn't help but ask.
If it takes longer than 3 hours, I'll always be on the bottom in the future,
Fey said grumpily.
I see.
Ling Chen nodded pensively. Fey looked over and calmly asked,
Are you thinking about how to drag it out for longer than 3 hours? Why, no, of course not.
Ling Chen hurriedly shook his head, saying righteously,
How could such a pure and kind-hearted man like me have such shameless thoughts? I was just thinking that, the weather's pretty good today.
Fey condescendingly rolled her eyes at him and grabbed his arm, saying,
We're going now. It's best that you close your eyes.
Without waiting for Ling Chen's response, Fey spread out her hand, and a blue light flashed as she and Ling Chen disappeared. A strange feeling of traveling through space assaulted Ling Chen's body, and the extreme speed that they traveled caused Ling Chen to subconsciously close his eyes. When he opened them again, the strange feeling was gone, and Fey's voice sounded in his ears.
We're here. We're here already? Didn't you say it was 3 hours?
Ling Chen looked at Fey in surprise.
We're at the Forgotten Continent's border.
Fey looked at Ling Chen as if he was an idiot and then sat down, cupping her cheeks with her hands as she looked ahead of her.
Looking at the sea peacefully like this isn't too bad.
Only now did Ling Chen realize that in front of him was an endless sea. Seabirds flew around them, and waves rolled onto the beach as the sound of the sea breeze resounded around them. Beneath their feet was a soft, warm sand. Ling Chen immediately took out the map of the Forgotten Continent and found that they were at the Forgotten Continent's southern sea, about 200 kilometers to the south of the lava purgatory. This was the southernmost part of the Forgotten Continent. Ling Chen was completely dumbfounded. In just an instant, They had traveled from Ling Tian City to the Forgotten Continent's southernmost boundary. This sort of terrifying spatial ability was more than 10 times better than spatial orbs.
After entering the ocean region and continuing on for 12 nautical miles, we'll reach the Forgotten Continent's world boundary,
they said as she looked ahead of her. The 12 nautical miles of sea around a continent belonged to that continent, and beyond that was the world boundary.
From Ling Tian City to this place, it is about 1,500 kilometers even when traveling in a straight line, and yet we reach this place in an instant. In that case, traversing 33,000 kilometers won't take 3 hours, only a mere while.
After think about that, Ling Chen became excited. Fei once again looked at Ling Chen like he was an idiot as she said,
"Think about it with your pig brain. Do you really think I can continuously use this sort of long-distance spatial ability into unknown regions? Even if it's the Lachesis, it has a cooldown. How long? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That doesn't sound too long."
Based on the speed and distance they had traveled and the cooldown time, Ling Chen calculated that it would indeed take about 3 hours. As Ling Chen was calculating, they looked ahead and said in a soft voice,
"I say, do you think there's a creature called a sea cat in this world? I've heard of things like sea lions and seagulls, but I've never heard about a sea cat."
Ling Chen looked at Fei strangely.
"Where did that come from?"
Fei pointed ahead of them and said with narrowed eyes,
"If there's no such thing as a sea cat, what's with that cat in the sea? There's a cat in the sea?"
Ling Chen looked over and found a golden, fat body in the shallow area about 100 meters away from them. Its butt was twisting and turning, and it had a furry and thick tail. Its limbs were short and thick, and its paws were incredibly large. As its body twisted and turned, its face occasionally turned, and it was possible to see that it was indeed a cat's face. Around its incredibly short neck was a big golden bell. At that moment, its 2 front paws were digging around in the seawater, creating many splashes. Evidently, it was looking for something in the seawater. Even though its body shape was a bit ridiculous, from its face, it was definitely a cat. However, Ling Chen did not believe that it was some sea cat because it did not live in the sea. This was evidently the treasure creature Lucky Cat that he had met many times.
"It's a lucky cat, a lucky cat."
Ling Chen covered his mouth, almost screaming out loud, his eyes widening as he spoke in a low voice.
"Lucky cat?"
They looked over at Ling Chen and said,
"A cat can evoke such a great reaction from you? Looks like it's not ordinary at all." "Of course it's not ordinary. It's a treasure creature."
Ling Chen gazed at the lucky cat, afraid that it was going to run away. Just as he was going to explain to Fei what it was, she said in surprise,
"And your continent has these treasure creatures as well? HM? You've seen them before?" "Of course."
Fei's gaze towards the lucky cat became dubious as she made a gesture of interest with her hand.
"In my continent, we also had a treasure creature, but it was not as cute as this fat cat. I caught it many times, and each time it handed over a piece of treasure. I thought that I wouldn't be able to catch treasure creatures anymore after leaving the continent, but now it seems that I can continue with this hobby of mine." "You can catch treasure creatures? And you did it many times?"
Ling Chen looked at Fei doubtfully, feeling quite glum, because even though he had met the lucky cat quite a few times, let alone catch it, he hadn't been able to touch a single fur on its body.
"Of course." "Oh, could it be that the invincible Adam has never caught a mere treasure creature before?"
They looked over while smiling.
"No way. It's just a treasure creature. Catching it is like child's play. I'm already bored from catching it."
In front of women, and especially a woman like Fei, Ling Chen couldn't afford to lose any face. He stood up with a whoosh.
"I'll go catch it now."
After saying this, he walked neither too fast nor too slow towards the lucky cat. Qiyu had said that the lucky cat had incredibly sharp senses, was incredibly cowardly, and would never allow any creature that could threaten it to come within 50 meters of it. However, Qiyu had also said that after he was above LV50, catching the lucky cat would not be so difficult. This was because after he passed LV50, the range of Moon's shadow would increase above 50 meters, allowing him to fix it in place despite being further than 50 meters away. Now, he was LV70, meaning that he would be able to use Moon's shadow from 70 meters away. Ling Chen came closer and closer, and soon, he was around 70 meters away. The lunar scourge on his right wrist shone with a mysterious silver light as he smiled delightedly.
Hey, lucky cat, let's see how you get away this time.
Catching the lucky cat.
Moon's shadow.
Once Ling Chen was within 70 meters of the lucky cat, he released the light of Moon's shadow from the lunar scourge. Everything within 70 meters of him stopped moving. The waves completely froze in place, and the lucky cat also did not move anymore.
See, catching this guy is as easy as taking candy from a baby,
Ling Chen said to Fey in a pleased manner as he picked up the lucky cat. This was the first time he had been so close to the lucky cat before, and he had to admit this cat was incredibly heavy. At that moment, he suddenly felt the lunar scourge slightly tremble. Ling Chen looked down and found that the lunar scourge's 11 orbs were faintly glowing. Ling Chen's eyes widened. Could it be? Hearing Ling Chen's words, and seeing how he had grabbed the lucky cat, Fei's expression became strange.
Are you sure you can catch treasure creatures like this? Is this how you caught them in the past?
At that moment, Moon Shadow's effects disappeared, and the lucky cat started to struggle within Ling Chen's grasp, crying out meows in fear and shock. Just as Ling Chen was about to reply, he felt the lucky cat disappear from within his arm, and it slammed into his body. Just like that, the lucky cat vanished into thin air. Ling Chen was completely dumbfounded, and he looked around. However, no matter where he looked, he could not see the lucky cat anywhere. He noticed that there was a small pile of golden coins by his feet, and after staring in surprise, he suddenly remembered the lucky cat's money escape skill. He immediately cursed,
"Fudge, money escape!"
Author's note: Money escape throws out 100 gold coins and uses nature energy to teleport to another place in the Forgotten Continent. However, because the lucky cat views money to be as important as its own life, it will not spend the heavy price of 100 gold coins to run away unless it is in great danger.
Ha ha ha.
They could not hold it anymore and started to laugh loudly, her full chest bouncing up and down. If it was before, he would have savagely glared at her, and might have even pounced at her. However, at this moment, he was in no mood for that, and he felt quite depressed.
From how you caught it, I thought the treasure creatures in your continent didn't know how to teleport. So it was, my dear Adam, did you really think you could catch that treasure creature like this? Treasure creatures are creatures of nature, and they all have lived for tens of thousands of years. If they were so easy to catch, they would have become someone's dinner tens of thousands of years ago.
It was rare to see Ling Chen fail so miserably and seem so depressed afterwards. So Fei definitely would not let this rare opportunity go, mocking him in all sorts of ways. After a while, she finally stopped laughing. Her expression became earnest as she looked at Ling Chen and said,
"However, it's only a treasure creature, so why are you so upset over it?"
Fei understood Ling Chen too well. No matter what sort of emotions he was experiencing, she was able to tell at a glance. Ling Chen frowned and said,
"No, I have to catch it." "Oh."
Fei raised her eyebrows.
"Even though you haven't been able to catch it before, you must have met it a few times. Did you discover something when you touched it?" "That's right."
Ling Chen nodded and raised his right wrist as he said,
"Just then, when I was holding the lucky cat, the lunar scourge reacted. In other words, There's a lunar scourge orb on it. It's something that I must obtain no matter what. So it's like that.
Fey's expression also became serious. She raised an eyebrow as she smiled.
I'll help you catch it then. You have a way to catch it?
Ling Chen asked in surprise. He knew exactly how difficult it was to catch. Putting aside its ridiculous movement speed, its teleportation made it almost impossible to catch. Fey's bewitching smile grew wider as she said casually,
It's just simple teleportation. It's nothing in front of the Lacus's spatial power. As long as I use Lacus's to follow its trail through space, catching it will be as easy as flipping over my palm. After I caught my continent's treasure creature 7 or 8 times, when it saw me, it simply obediently handed over a piece of treasure. That's amazing.
Ling Chen was dumbfounded.
Hurry up and catch it for me then. What will you do if you wait too long and its trail disappears? Beg me.
Fey's eyes narrowed as she smiled.
If you don't beg me, why would I be so kind as to catch it for you? Fudge!
Ling Chen cursed.
What did you say? I said, my most beloved, greatest little Fey, my gentlest, kindest, most intelligent, and greatest wife, you'll definitely help me catch that lucky cat, right?
Ling Chen was almost pressed up against Fey, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Oh my goodness, after saying all those things that he did not mean at all, he was worried that he would be struck by lightning. Fey's eyes almost narrowed into slits as she smiled. She stretched out a white finger and stroked Ling Chen's forehead as she said in a soft voice,
My little Adam, if you're always so meek and obedient, your great wife will always treat you well.
After saying this, Fey laughed as a blue light flashed on her hand, and she disappeared.
Fudge! That arrogant woman!
Ling Chen immediately straightened up as he roared.
Next time, I'll screw you so hard that you won't be able to get off the bed for 3 days. Then we'll see who's the boss of who as so fast.
Before Ling Chen's words had died out, Fey's seductive body had reappeared before him. She gave him a beautiful but dangerous smile.
All right, I heard that. If you don't screw me so that I can't get off the bed for 3 days next time, I'll be the boss in future. Did I say something? You must have heard incorrectly. You definitely heard incorrectly. How could I say something like that?
Ling Chen frowned as he spoke in a serious manner.
Humph.
Fey glared at him as she said,
After a few years, your skills in bed haven't improved by much, but your skin is 250 times thicker than before. However, since I'm your great wife, I won't bicker with you. Here, your big fat cat.
After saying this, Fey flicked out a finger, and the blue ring on her index finger glowed. The space in front of Ling Chen twisted as a golden fat cat suddenly appeared in the air. It fell on its bottom, its 2 paws desperately hiding its face. From the way it seemed, it was trying to cover its head, but because its arms were not long enough, it gave pitiful meows.
Lucky cat!
Ling Chen felt delighted.
You really caught it? How did it appear just then?
Fey waved her hand and casually said,
I tracked it first, sealed the space around it, and then teleported it back. Just like that.
She then added,
Even though it seems like it's freely sitting there, the space around it has been completely sealed by me. Unless I unseal it, it will be impossible for it to run or teleport.
Without Fey having to explain it, Ling Chen had already guessed that this was the case. Otherwise, how could this incredibly cowardly cat that had unparalleled escaping abilities obediently sit there? Honestly speaking, without Fey, even if Ling Chen could move 10 times as fast and Moon Shadow's range was 10 times as big, he would still not be able to truly catch the lucky cat. This was because even if he grabbed it, it would be able to escape with a money escape. It would be more likely for him to instantly kill the lucky cat. Ling Chen squatted down in front of the lucky cat and rubbed his hands as he chuckled, saying,
Lucky cat, you can't run away this time. I still haven't dealt with you for stealing all of my money last time.
This lucky cat most likely had never been caught before. When Ling Chen spoke to it at such a close distance, it was so scared that all of its fur stood on end, and its fat body desperately retreated as far as it could within the enclosed space. After being stared at with Ling Chen's terrifying gaze, it finally thought of something and moved its paws to its bell.
Treasure creatures all have their own spatial items, and they normally keep their treasures within those spatial items,
Fey said as she looked at the lucky cat's actions.
Its bell should be its spatial item. When a treasure creature is caught and can't escape, it will take out money or treasure and give it to the person who caught it to buy its freedom.
Oh! Ling Chen nodded, his gaze fixed on the lucky cat's paws. Even though he had asked Fey to catch the lucky cat for the lunar scourge orb on its body, as a treasure creature, it definitely had countless items. Anything it took out would definitely be quite extraordinary, so Ling Chen waited with great anticipation. The lucky cat's paws trembled for a while, as if it was making a very difficult decision. After a while, it finally moved its paws away and stretched them out to Ling Chen. Even though it had the face of a cat, Ling Chen was shocked to see that it had a devastated and heartbroken look on its face. Goddamn, just what had it taken out for this big fat cat to be so sad? The lucky cat slowly opened its paw, and within it, a single gold coin glittered, almost blinding Ling Chen's eyes. Ling Chen almost fell right onto the lucky cat's big stomach. Fudge! A single gold coin. Was it taking him for a beggar? If it wasn't for the fact that the lucky cat had been sealed in place, Ling Chen really would have kicked it into the sea in anger. Seeing that the lucky cat was treating him like a beggar, Ling Chen felt incredibly furious, and he roared at the lucky cat.
A single gold coin? Do you think I'm begging for money? You took more than 1 million gold from me last time. And now, you want to get rid of me with a single gold coin? If you don't take out a decent treasure, don't ever think of escaping.
Ho! Fey laughed.
The high and mighty Adam actually got angry at a cat. This is quite the show. Che!
Ling Chen pouted.
Try catching an incredibly rich tycoon someday and experiencing the feeling of him giving you a single coin to release him.
Fey shrugged and continued to grin.
I should remind you that based on my experience catching treasure creatures in the past, they will only give you one piece of treasure every time you catch them. At the very least, the ones I've caught have never handed over a second piece of treasure. No matter how long I trapped it for, it would never hand over another piece of treasure. Perhaps this is a principle they hold on to. If you want to get the Lunar Scourge's orb from it, you should be more direct. I see,
Ling Chen replied. In actuality, he had been wondering how to obtain more than one piece of treasure from the lucky cat. However, after hearing that from Fey, he realized that he had been too greedy. Seeing how miserly this lucky cat was, it seemed that it would not hand over an extra piece of treasure even if he chopped it up. The 11 orbs on Ling Chen's right wrist were all glowing with a faint light, reacting to an orb nearby. Even though Ling Chen had seen the lucky cat many times, he had never been able to get close to it, so he had never detected that it had an orb on it. After thinking about Fei's words, Ling Chen started to think. He took the Libra orb off the lunar scourge and waved it in front of the lucky cat and said fiercely,
I know you have an orb that looks like this. Do you want your freedom back? Hand over this orb and I'll let you go. Otherwise, now that I think about it, I've never tasted cat meat before.
Facing the demon god like Ling Chen, the incredibly timid lucky cat started to tremble. It desperately leaned back, its short arms trying to protect the golden bell in front of its chest. It did not forget to take back the gold coin that Ling Chen had rejected. Ling Chen was completely certain that it had the Lunar Scourge's orb in it. The Lunar Scourge's reaction was proof of that. However, Even though the lucky cat looked incredibly scared and stared at the Libra orb in Ling Chen's hands, after a long time, it still did not take out the orb. Ling Chen's frown became deeper, and he became completely furious, scaring even Fey, who had walked over.
Hurry up and hand over the orb that you have. Otherwise, I won't show you any more mercy. Meow, 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 meow.
The lucky cat gripped the bell in front of its chest, its fat body shrinking into a ball. However, it still did not take anything out.
Argha!
The lucky cat's stubbornness completely enraged Ling Chen, making him want to tear that fat cat apart. After watching for a while, they couldn't hold it anymore and started to laugh loudly.
Ah, my little Adam, have you really caught this treasure creature before? You don't seem very familiar with it.
Ling Chen became speechless. His face, which had skin as thick as a city wall, became incredibly red. Because he had claimed that he had caught it many times before, he had been unendingly teased by Fey. It seemed that he really couldn't lie rashly in front of this woman.
Even if you cook it into a cat dish, it still won't give you what you want. My little Adam, go play with your little thing and watch how your gentle, intelligent, and great wife deals with this.
They slowly said while pushing Ling Chen aside. She came in front of the lucky cat, her expression becoming incredibly gentle in mind. Even her gaze became like pure autumn water, making Ling Chen feel completely dumbfounded. This woman was showing such a gentle expression to the big fat cat. What? This demonic woman, who could kill people without blinking, could reveal such a gentle expression? This was impossible.
Cute little kitty, sorry for scaring you.
Fey gently smiled. Her first word almost caused Ling Chen to spit saliva out of his mouth. Was this gentle and sweet voice really coming from this woman? He was hallucinating. He was definitely hallucinating.
Don't worry, with me here, that bad person won't dare to harm you anymore.
Fey's hand passed through the spatial barrier and gently stroked the lucky cat's head. Under her gentle coaxing, the lucky cat's body began to relax, and the fear in its eyes started to recede. Beside them, the bad person Ling Chen's face twitched.
Don't be afraid. No one will hurt you,
Fey said softly, as she stroked the lucky cat's fur while smiling. The lucky cat's fear gradually disappeared, and it started to close its eyes, making it look like it was greatly enjoying the petting. In fact, it even moved its body closer towards Fey's hand.
You're such a cutie.
Fey's smile and voice became warmer, making Ling Chen feel completely dumbfounded. He simply couldn't believe that this was the demonic woman who he had known for more than 10 years. After being comforted and stroked for a long time, not only did the lucky cat's fear disappear, but it also even started acting close to Fey. Fey smiled and said,
So, little kitty, do you have that thing that the bad person wanted? If you have it, can you give it to me? As long as you give it to me, you'll regain your freedom, and you'll be able to go wherever you want to go.
Ling Chen, who felt completely deflated after trying to deal with the lucky cat, thought that Fey's words would cause the lucky cat to become fearful and distrusting again. However, what happened next caused his jaw to drop. The lucky cat's paws reached towards its bell with a whoosh, took out a moon-white orb, and took the initiative to give it to Fey. When doing this, it did not look reluctant at all, and it even wagged its tail. Ling Chen's mouth hung wide open, and if he was wearing glasses, they would have fallen to the ground.
You're such a good kitty.
After receiving the orb, Fey's eyes narrowed as she smiled, and she gently patted the lucky cat's head. A blue light flashed as the spatial barrier around the lucky cat was dispelled.
All right, cute little kitty, you're free now, and you can go wherever you want. In the future, you must be careful so that you're not caught by this bad person again.
The lucky cat tried moving its body, and after confirming that it could move again, its fur trembled with excitement. Before leaving, it looked at Fey reluctantly before disappearing with a whoosh. Fey turned around, her slim fingers playing with the lunar scourge's orb.
Treasure creatures are creatures of nature, and they love good and hate evil. A creature birthed by nature would never hand over treasure to evil people because that would be a type of sin to it. However, if it's a good person, that's different. As such, if you try to scare it or threaten it, it will recognize you as an evildoer, so giving you a single gold coin would already be pretty good. As for your great wife, not only am I incredibly beautiful, but I'm also incredibly gentle as well. As such, it was more than happy to give me a piece of treasure for its freedom. Why didn't you say so earlier?
Ling Chen's face twitched. I've never interacted with a treasure creature before. How could I know this?
Ayaya, who was it that said that they've caught treasure creatures many times before? I thought that you already knew all of this common knowledge.
Ling Chen.
$% Do you want this orb?
They waved the lunar scourge's orb in front of Ling Chen while enchantingly smiling.
I do,
Ling Chen numbly replied. He knew that he would have to agree to an incredibly unfair deal to receive the orb.
I want to be on top for the next time as well. Any objections?
They batted her eyes as she smiled.
None.
In order to obtain the lunar scourge's orb, Ling Chen fought back tears as he agreed to the humiliating and unfair deal.
Such a good boy. If you're obedient, your great wife will make you feel awesome when she's on top,
Fey said as she gave a smile that could steal souls. She tossed the orb to Ling Chen.
Since you're so good, I'll give you this orb to play with.
Ling Chen extended his arm and caught the orb. The instant it landed in his hand, he confirmed that it was indeed the lunar scourge's orb. Not only was the light that it gave off the same, but its size, weight, and texture were also exactly the same as the other 11 orbs. With the orb in hand, Ling Chen became so excited that he forgot about the difficulties he had faced to obtain it. This orb was not something he had obtained through Suer's Heaven Secret's power, but something that he had completely obtained by chance. He had never thought that one of the orbs would be on the lucky cat that he had seen so many times. Even though he was incredibly annoyed at Fey for being so pleased to the point that he wanted to immediately strip her down and teach her a lesson, he had to admit that he would never have been able to obtain this orb or even known that it was on the lucky cat if it wasn't for Fey.